younger people and trying to do things for the right reason and grow with like-minded people. So I appreciate it. Now I hand that over to you, Coach.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach. This is our third session. It's been awesome getting on with you guys and partner up with Coach Turek and your Olympian coaching staff and other people and players and other coaches from the UK and here in the US. So I definitely appreciate that. I mean, Hope to Football is just a platform for young kids to work their game and to learn their game at a higher level. Everybody that coaches inside of it is an ex-player, ex-NFL player, or ex-NFL coach. And we just given a platform for them to hone their skills in our different camps that we have once the pandemic is over. But and I really couldn't do this without all my guys, and David and Darren, and I'm hoping Charlie gets on. Charlie's supposed to be on here. Charlie Collins, he's our offensive guy. He's talked a little zone read and RPOs with you guys, but he's supposed to be on here. But if not, we're going to have enough to get you guys through. But I couldn't do it without Darren and David and my other guys that definitely helped me out with promoting and giving the kids the opportunity to keep getting better at American football. So with that being said, and I'm going to start out with David Washington, who's a speed guy. And today he's going to talk more of speed, strengthening the core, the body, and some of the workouts or liftings that he can do to help the speed training aspect of it to help you get faster on the field. David?
All right. How you doing, everybody? Again, my name is David Washington, like Rod said. I'm in LA. Which is where I met Rod many, many, many years ago. If you were there for the first time I was on, I talked more about speed in general, where it comes from, how it's developed, and so forth. And today I'm going to talk a little bit more specifics about some of the muscle groups that are used when we sprint. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you. And again, at any time, if anyone has any questions, slow me down, feel free to jump in and ask me about certain things. And this is just step one of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to share my screen with everyone. Hold on. Let me get back to this. Give me just a minute.
You need to go get your daughter again?
No, I'm good, man. I knew that was coming. I was counting in my head. One, two.
Cherokee, Marcy, we need your help.
Yeah. Let's lay some bets on. I'll take some bets on this one.
Okay. Can everybody see this?
No.
No.
I told you to go get Cherokee.
She's not here. She's not here today.
We in trouble, man. We in trouble.
No. Okay, can everybody see that?
No, you got to share the screen first, and then click on the PowerPoint.
I got share screen up. There we go. All right, good now?
Yeah.
All right. So, man, you got to have a little faith, man. Just got to have a little faith. All right. So, trying to get it so it's enlarged a little bit. You know what? I'm just going to go with what we have here. Can everybody see what I'm looking at right now? Okay, so we're talking about strength exercises for speed. So let's talk about the very first question everybody asks. Okay, what muscles are needed to sprint faster? So I'm kind of science-based too a little bit. A lot of it's just things I've learned over the years, some of the things I've researched and so forth. And I've been lucky enough to have come across, worked under a plethora of a lot of coaches that have taught me things throughout the years. So the first thing that people ask is, okay, so if I'm looking at how to get faster, what do I need to do in the weight room? So studies using a range of other research methods have similarly shown that sprinting performance is determined primarily with the hip extension muscles, which are your hamstrings, your adductor magnus, and gluteus maximus. So we're looking at your hamstring and your glutes for the most part. And then the front part of the body, looking at hip flexors and your knee flexor muscles, okay? So moving on to this, we look at, what I wanted to point out here was this. So our iliopsoas, or your psoas majors, and your iliacus is this muscle here, your psoas major. Now, why are we talking about this? So this is the muscle in the front of your leg, your hip flexor muscles, this group, which helps lift the knee up in the front. It's connected right below your waist, top of your thigh. It's if you're sprinting and you worked out a lot, it's kind of a bulging muscle when you lift your knee up. If not, something you got to work on. But I point this out because this muscle is connected underneath the hip bone to your lower back. So if this gets tight, it really hinges or prevents your hips from really opening up. So a lot of times people will either strain this muscle or it gets really tight, and you feel it more in the lower back. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to point this muscle out. So that's generally, we group it together and call it our hip flexor. Okay, in the back of the body, you have your gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, so your glutes, and then you have your bicep femoris, so your hamstring groups here. So these are our 3 to 4 different muscles that combine together, and we lump them together and call them collectively the hamstring. But they're 3 to 4 different muscle groups that combine together. So and then in the front again, here you have your psoas major. So your front and back of the leg or your body work together. If one is tight, it's going to hinge the other one. So if my glutes are tight, it's going to also not allow my hip flexors to work properly. Okay? So I'm going to go into a couple of different exercises, and I chose these because kids all around the world need to do these exercises. But everyone, especially right now because of COVID, we don't have access to gyms. So I wanted to pick some exercises that we could do, that kids could do at home or could do on their own without having to worry about getting to a gym. So the first one we're looking at is which I love, it's a hip flexor band exercise. So if you start here, the band, you can get a band, and if you don't have a band, you can still go through the same motion and start developing the hip flexor. So the band's around the ankle, you're up on the ball of your feet, and you have a nice straight line from the shoulders down through your hips to your knee to your ankle. Second one is you want to dorsiflex the toe. You drive the knee up and out at an angle. Okay, and then you want to drive the knee all the way up to it's about 90 degrees, and you come back to the original position. Try to get this back where it was. There we go. Whoops. Anyway, I'll get that later. So moving on. So go to now the assisted single leg glute squat. So this is your starting position. Again, you're going to be in a nice straight position. You're on one leg. You want to squat down with the weight being back on the hips. Okay, you don't want the weight to be over top of your knee. You want the weight to be back on your hips as you go down, heels and hips. You want the knee to go down about 90 degrees, back's about 45 degrees, and as you come up, you're pushing through the ground up through your hips. You want the weight to be bearing, be hip bearing and not so much on the knee. Can't emphasize that enough on this particular exercise. You're pushing up through the glutes, and you want to come back up to your original position, your standing position, and then just go back down. And you repeat that same exercise. And you want to finish standing again in a tall position from the ankle to the knee to the hip to the shoulder.
Coach, can I ask a quick question, please?
Of course.
When you're driving up from the ground, are you driving through the heels like a weighted squat?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
So so the name is, we go back to this. It is called the assisted single leg glute squat. So you're leaning back on your heels. So you want to be pushing through your heels. Good point. okay? What I want you to look for, and when you're teaching your kids this, or if you're doing it yourself, obviously, is that when you're going down into that squat position, keep your knee over top of the toes, or in alignment with your toes, I should say. Not over top, but in alignment with your toes. You don't want to go inside, so you want to protect your MCL, okay? You don't want to misalign your knee so where it goes in. A lot of kids do this. When they come up from a squat position, they'll buckle their knees in. And the younger they are, the more they do it. They're not as stable. So to compensate for this, you want to teach your kids to engage the glutes and roll the quads slightly out. If you tighten your glutes up, just because of the chain reaction, your quads kind of roll out to the side. So they're going to keep your knees in alignment with your toes. So this really helps preventing injuries. So you want to keep a constant eye on that as kids do this. So with a single leg glute squat, you want to begin by standing on one leg. You can use the wall, the fence, or anything to assist. Slowly lower the body down with weight on the hips, not the quads. Get as close to 90 degrees as possible. Keep knee in alignment with toes. Push against the ground through the hips to the beginning position. And again, do not allow the knee to move towards the midline of the body. You want to protect your MCL. And then we go to the assisted single leg VMO squat. So I'm going to go back to this particular slide. And what we call the VMO is here, your vastus medialis muscle. It's your teardrop muscle above the knee, just on the inside. This helps protect the knee and keeps it strong. So when we're doing this particular exercise, your assisted single leg VMO squat, you want to start out tall, but now you're leaning in a forward position. So the weight's going to be more on the quad and over the toe. Again, you're going to be using the wall to assist you. You're going to squat down, but now the weight, instead of being back on the hip, is shifted forward. So it's over top of the knee. Again, you come down 90 degrees, and you're going to push up. Now you're pushing up through the toes and through the knees to come back to your starting position. Again, you want a nice straight line from the ankle to the knee, to the hip, to the shoulder. This knee is driving forward. And just repeat the same positions. So you're going to begin the exercise standing on one leg with the knee forward. Slowly lower the body with the weight forward. Allow the body to descend at a 45-degree angle until the knees are about 90, has a 90-degree bend in it. And push the body back up to the starting point. Make sure you extend through the ankle, the knee, the hips, and tighten the glutes. Okay, that's called your assisted single leg VMO squat. Any questions yet? All right, we're good. Okay, now this kind of ties back into the exercise I showed before the last one. This is your weighted single leg squat. So now we're going to take a weight that a person can handle if they're putting the weight straight out. So your shoulders need to be able to bear this kind of weight. So you're on one leg. As you squat down, you want to push the weight out from the body so you counterbalance the weight here and here. So again, you're going to be on your glutes and on your heels. The weight's going to counterbalance. You go down to 90 degrees, and then you push back up again through the heels and through the glutes back to your starting position. Again, you want to keep the knees and toes aligned to protect the knee. The glutes are your strongest muscle in the body. Glutes and hamstrings, that quad section. So use that. A lot of athletes don't want to use they want to use the front part of their body, and they have a tendency to be more on quad dominant as opposed to using their glutes and their hamstrings. That's the strongest muscle. It comes in so much in handy when you're sprinting. So use it. So now we go to the upper body. This is called the plank rear delt extension. So I wanted to show this because when we sprint, our delts are broken up into, the delts are your shoulders. They're broken up into three parts. You have your rear delt, you have your front delt, and you have your top delt, called the head of the muscle. So when we sprint, as we drive that elbow back, it's driven back through the delt muscle. So if you're driving your left elbow back, your right knee comes up. So your body works together in quadrants. So whatever my left arm is doing, my right leg is doing. So you want to develop these muscles at the same time you're developing your hips and glutes. So for this particular exercise, you start off in the plank position. Make sure your feet are nice and balanced, have a good stable base. You want to use that weight, whatever weight it is, 5, 10 pounds. Shoulders are a little bit different than the legs. So you want to kind of really gauge what kind of weight you're going to use. You want to drive that arm out like at 45-degree angle. And then as you come down, you're going to twist the body under, so you're using your obliques and your waist to activate the upper body. So you have to engage the core in all of these. So obviously with the plank, you engage your core and you're twisting from there. So you begin with the body in the plank position. Make sure the shoulders directly over the hand and the shoulders locked. That's the shoulders going to keep you balanced in the front. Raise the arm with the weight in about 45-degree angle. Keep the arm straight and controlled. Keep lowering the weight. Twist at the waist. Well, my typos are bad, huh? And bring the weight under the body. And repeat this move. So now we go to a plank single arm row. This is going to engage your delts in the rear and your lats. Lats are that big wing muscle underneath the arm. It connects to your lower back. So this position, you start off in a plank. Again, use a weight that you can handle. And you're just going to drive the elbow back, bring the weight and your hand to about your hip. So if you're a track coach, people used to call this running from the pocket. So you want to get your hand to where it's about even with your hip pocket, okay? So the plank position is where we begin. With the chosen weight in one hand, make sure it's stable and have a strong base. Pull the elbow towards the waist, towards and past the waist, and repeat this exercise. So this is called your weighted single arm plank rows. So these can be done about 3 times a week. Someone asked me before, can you combine these with a workout that if you come off the field from football, or if you come off the track, can you do these exercises afterwards? And you can. These I chose because when you lift, you want to lift after you perform whatever you're doing on the field, because you're going to be contracting a lot of muscles and you're going to be tight. So you want to lift after you work out. Obviously, you know, re-nourish and replenish the body after you come off the field. Give the kids about, maybe 30-minute break, give them something to eat, something to drink. And each one of these should be done in 3 sets of 10 on each leg or each arm. And I chose these because someone told me years ago that most sports, especially done with the ball, are performed on one leg at a time. So by performing these exercises on single leg, it helps balance out the body. Most people's bodies are not evenly balanced, right or left or right. So these help single out where the weaknesses are and will help strengthen. And if you do them on one leg, it's going to bring that weak part of the body up to speed with the other leg. So you want to do a lot of single leg stuff. And it transfers over into when you go back to a squat, or if you're lifting, say a bench press. I'm sure all coaches have noticed this when a kid or anyone is lifting and they're going to heavier weights. Sometimes the right arm will come up before the left arm. That means there's an imbalance. So you want to start going to the single arm or single leg stuff to help balance the body out, so that you make sure that when you're performing, you can perform on either side of your body. A lot of times when things are imbalanced is when you invite injuries in. So it's much better to think about balancing the body out than to lift with 2 arms and 2 legs on a constant basis. You don't stop doing those things, but you want to bring in the single arm and single leg exercises. That is it for this part from me. Do I have any questions?
Yes, sir.
How to
Coach,
perform them, when to do them? Yes.
Coach Washington, we have a question from Samuel Opong, and he asks, why are we only doing 90-degree squats when you're doing the assisted squats workout routine? Okay,
because if you think about it, when you're performing anything on the field or any type of sport, when do you go past 90 degrees? Very, very, very seldom. The 90 degrees helps keep everything intact. It doesn't overly strain a muscle group. Sometimes people will squat and they go past 90 degrees. But if you're performing, and I base a lot of the exercises that I have my athletes do based on what their body's going to be doing on the field. So I try to mimic what their body positions are going to be when they perform. So for the most part, you're not going to go past 90 degrees, and it just protects the knees a little bit more, especially when you start going heavy. If that answers your question. I'm not saying you can't go past 90, but I prefer when I'm training athletes to keep them around 90 degrees.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Coach Rick, you have a question?
Coach, do you make any adjustments for like the offensive line or the defensive line, the bigger guys? Is it the same for them with what you're doing here, or are adjustments made?
On these particular exercises, no, they do the same thing. A lot of the single leg stuff, they're coming out of their stance a lot of times from these positions. So this is going to translate well, especially the single leg squat and the VMO. That's going to translate well into how they perform, especially the line, and what they do on a daily basis. They're in these positions constantly. Okay,
just a quick follow-up. And then when you're using the wall as assistance, that is just to keep your balance? You're not pulling yourself up on it, or
no,
it's just for balance?
Just for balance. I mean, realistically, you can just have your fingertips on the wall. You don't have to hold onto it solidly. It's just for balance and just as a reference point. You should be using, most of the weight should be on the hips and pushing up through the hips. So the wall is just there as a mental balance thing.
Thank you, Coach.
You're quite welcome.
Jim Messenger, sir, you're up.
Just remember to unmute first. Coach Washington, thank you very much for sharing your time with us. It's very much appreciated. Really interesting exercise there. Do you recommend any specific stretching routine to go alongside this?
Yeah, there's a plethora of stretches that we do. Obviously, from here, you're coming off of working out to do these exercises. If you're looking at hip flexor exercises or stretches or glute or hamstring, are you talking about everything, or do you have one particular body part in mind? Because I can give you a whole genre of stretches that you're looking for.
Yeah, I just because we concentrate on one muscle group, perhaps just stay with that. It would be more specific to that.
Okay, let's talk about hip flexors first. So if you're going to stretch your hip flexor, one exercise you can do just to get it warmed up is just stand straight. If you can balance on one leg, you say if I'm balancing on my left leg, I take my right leg and I hold my ankle with my right arm. And then I pull my heel up to my butt, okay? And I stretch. As I pull my hips forward, that's going to lengthen out the whole right side of my body from my obliques down to my hip flexor through my quad. Because as I pull my knee up, my quad is going to stretch out. So that's going to pull the hip flexor, okay? So that's one exercise. Another one is if I'm in a lunge position, I lunge out with my left leg. My right leg is stretched back as far as it can be, and I push my hips forward down at a 90-degree angle towards the ground. And that's going to stretch out that whole side. And then to add a little bit more to that, if I take my right arm and reach it above my head and stretch out my rib cage, that's going to even stretch it that much more. Okay? Yes, exactly. Okay? You can roll on a foam roller. You want to get it inside, get it right on top of the hip flexor and roll it out. Or you can take a lacrosse ball or a softball or any kind of ball and do the same thing and roll that hip flexor out. If you want to get into stretching the glutes, you can sit on the ground, take your left ankle and put it on your right knee. So now your knee is bent, and you can pull the knee. So if I have my left ankle on my right knee, I want to pull my right knee towards my body, which is going to cause my IT band and my glutes on that left side to be stretched. And it's because I'm pulling it towards my body. So it's going to be stretched. Okay. Obviously, another simple hamstring stretch is If I'm standing, I want to spread my feet as wide as I can, comfortably. And I want to lean from my waist. I want to bend my elbows so they look like this, if everybody can see that. And now I'm trying to reach my elbows down and touch the ground. So your legs are spread out, my arms are bent, and I'm bending at the waist, and I'm trying to get my elbows to touch the ground. So you're going to feel the whole back of the leg from your Achilles through the calf, through the hamstrings, through your glutes. They're all going to be stretched out. And also you're going to be stretching your adductor muscles, the inside leg, the inside muscles. They're going to be stretching also because you're trying to spread out as far as you can. So that's a couple of glute exercises. And again, if you have a tight psoas, so that muscle that runs from the back from your back down through your hip, you can take a softball and sit on that softball and find that the tension spot in the glute, and you can roll back and forth. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on it because you can bruise it. You just want to do it lightly. So I would say a softball more so than anything else, because that's going to give a little bit, or a foam roller. And you just kind of roll around, roll back and forth, and that's going to help pinpoint certain little areas that might feel tight in the glutes. Does that help answer your question?
Thank you very much. Yes.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions?
We do. Tabriz, sir, would you like to state your question yourself, or do you want me to read out for you? Don't be shy, Tabriz. You can do it yourself. You good. You're a good guy.
Hi. Hope everyone's well. Great presentation. So I just want to talk about dynamic stretching. How much time should players be doing dynamic stretching? And also, have you kind of got any tips regarding any recovery stretching after a game? Do kind of ice baths work for like the muscles? What's your advice?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've done your homework. You're hitting all the right points. So yeah, dynamic stretching versus static stretching when people warm up. And the difference is a dynamic stretch is a stretch that you do in movement, i.e. A skip or B skip, a lunge walk. These are stretches that you do that are stretching the muscles as you move, so it warms up the core internally. A static stretch is one where you sit down on the ground and you do a hurdle stretch, or you sit down on the ground and you do a butterfly stretch. That's the difference in dynamic versus static. I prefer a little bit of both, but I start off with dynamic stretching. Just to get the whole body warmed up, and you break a little sweat. As far as recovery, stretching during recovery, after you've had a workout and you want to warm down, then you can go into more of your static stretching. That's going to help the body cool down. It's going to help prevent injuries. You want to stretch to make sure that whatever lactic acid you have in your system is being flushed out. So I would say your static stretches come in at the end of a workout. So you can do, you can touch your toes. You can do the one where I explained where you spread your feet. You can do a butterfly stretch. You can do a lunge stretch. All those come in handy. You can foam roll. And yes, an ice bath, as old as the idea is, it's great. It helps flush out the lactic acid. It helps cool the system down. It's going to help prevent. So what happens is when you cool down the body with ice. So when we apply heat to blood, it coagulates. It gets thicker. So when we ice blood and get it cooler, it gets a little thinner. So when you get into an ice bath after a workout, the blood flows a little bit more through the muscles, and it helps flush out a lot of lactic acid and gets that old tired blood out of your system much faster. So that's why we jump into ice baths. That's why when you have an injury and something swells up, you ice it so that it helps flush that area out much quicker than normal. So an ice bath, foam roll, static stretching after a workout. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, 100%. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Dave, I have a question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was sorry. Go ahead, Coach. Coach Perry, you good?
Okay, Dave, I had a question for you. In your warm up with your A skips and your B skips, you go through your workout. Is there any merit to doing those warm up exercises at the end, combined with your static stretching as you're cooling down? Does that do more harm than good, or have you done enough? Is there any merit to doing that, or would your workout, take care of that?
Your warm up and your workout's taking care of that. Let those muscles start to relax and recuperate and restore. So you don't need to repeat the same exercises you did in the beginning at the end. You can jog as opposed to sprinting, just to start letting the body cool down on its own, and then go into the static stretching. So it's kind of like if you, let's say you own a high performance car. You'll see guys or hear guys when they'll pull the car in the driveway and they'll rev the engine up and they shut it off. That's actually doing more damage to the engine than good.
Gotcha.
If anything, you pull in the driveway, you let it idle for a few minutes, and then you shut it off and let it cool down. So it's just like, I was telling Rod, I'm changing the turbos in my car. You guys heard that. So same thing. If you have turbos in a car, you let the car warm up and run for like 2 to 3 minutes before you roll down the street. It saves the turbos. It's going to save the engine, because you have to get oil into the turbos. The body's the same way. So as you warm up, you're getting that blood to start pumping through the muscles, getting them to lubricate and loosen up before you jump into it.
And I guess I'm thinking like an old school coach in a sense, to where you got to be able to do it when you're tired. And so I'm sitting there thinking like, man, is there any merit to doing these A skips, B skips, these butt kicks, all you want at the end to, build maybe a little bit more strength endurance possibly. And that's kind of where that came from.
No, I can understand that, but if their workouts should enable them to be able to do that when they're tired.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like at the end of football practice. If you have your short yardage offense out there, and you're under the gun, you say you go through that for 2 or 3 minutes. It's you're back on the line. That's when you're tired. That's when you have to perform and do those things at a high performance, and that covers that when you're tired type thing. Or if you're an old school coach, and you say, okay, practice is we're done with the game part of practice, not getting on the line, we're going to run sprints.
Yeah.
So
at the end of practice.
At the end of practice, a good athlete is going to just say the coach says, okay, we're going to do 10 40s. A good athlete is going to sprint their hardest each 10. Okay. The average athlete is going to, in their mind, say, okay, I got 10 of these. Okay, I'll do the first 2 hard just to show the coach I can run.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to cruise through the next 6. And then the last 2, I'm going to run hard again. So I'll make sure he sees me.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's those 6 in the middle that hurt.
Yes.
That hurt the athlete.
I'd
rather have an athlete show me he can give me 6, 7 hard good ones. And if the last 3 he's struggling because he's dead tired, so be it. But at least I know he has a heart and he can push through all 10 of those, as opposed to show me something at the beginning and at the end and in the middle of the game. Where is he? Oh, he's over there. Yeah, I see him. He's not getting the ball. He's not getting the pass on this one. So he's just going to fake like he's running. Then it's like, oh, give me the ball. Give me the ball. So.
And I think what you're saying kind of falls in line with a lot of the coaches up today. I mean, you still have a few that will do the wind sprints at the end of practice for conditioning. But I know when we were in Green Bay, we didn't do any post-practice conditioning, and we built it into practice, which to me seems more in line with what you're talking about in terms of at the end of practice. Now you're cooling down, and you've got your quality work built in through your repetitions throughout the practice.
Yes, I agree with that, but I am old school, and I didn't play ball in college. I played ball in high school and so forth. But I still believe in, at the end of practice, you give them the wind sprints.
Okay.
You do whatever, however long you want to do them. You do the wind sprints. That's going to make a big difference at the end of a game.
Gotcha.
If you got to do a Hail Mary, you go to that receiver that you know can give you 110 down, he can fly.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Or if you have, you know, if you're a DB, you know, as Rod can attest to, if you go up against a speedster, I got to match him speed for speed, step for step. He's not getting past me. You know, you got to come with it at the end of the game. You know who's getting the ball, and you got to step up.
Gotcha.
So if you haven't done your wind sprints, look out.
That's rare nowadays in the NFL, David, just so you know. The players look at you like you're a little crazy when you tell them to get on the line and do gashers or wind sprints at the end of practice. But there's a few coaches out there that, just like you said, they still believe in that, and they've had success. So there's more than, you know, one way to do it, I guess.
Okay. We have any other questions?
Coach Perkins, sir. I know you do.
Yep. Yeah. Good evening, Coach. I just was reading up on you, saw that you went through BMI. I was a 100-meter, 200-meter runner.
Hey, Coach Perkins, can you might have to just move a little closer to the mic.
Sorry, my headphones. Yeah, I was a student athlete at UVA and GMU like many years ago. You're a little bit.
Still can't hear you, sir.
I hit the UVA and the JMU. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I went.
Okay. All right. So you from Virginia?
Yes, I am from Michigan.
Okay.
Okay.
But you know, I just wanted, and Coach Perry, to you as well. But I just wanted to ask. The question is, what speed work do you couple with your weight workouts? I asked because I never did speed work as a football player. When I came to fall camp in August, I was basically coming out of my track season, so I came in fast. But for football players, what do you couple with? I'm asking, are you doing like, you know, 16 by 200 or 4 by 800? Or are you doing 150s? Or are you doing something even short? What do you couple with your weight workouts?
If it's the summertime and it's preseason, then I treat the athletes as though they're track athletes. Okay. And I have them on the track doing repeat 200s, repeat 150s. As they get closer to the season, you start gearing down and go more with the 60s and the 40s. You may throw in, you know, a couple of 200s, a couple of 150s in there, but most of it's going to be short speed stuff. And then as you get into football practice, you know, the season, that strength work that you've done with the repeat 200s and so forth is going to linger. That's going to stay there. And then again, you keep for me, you keep that base and you keep that speed in by doing, you know, the sprint work at the end of practice. Even if your coach doesn't have you do it, I think the athletes should do it on their own. Doesn't have to be a whole lot, but you know, you just want to keep those fast twitch muscles in tune and remember how they're supposed to work and how they're supposed to fire. Did it help answer your question?
Yeah, I was kind of more for the players that are listening. But yeah, that actually does.
Okay, all right. So I mean, it's important, I think, for any athlete if they're going, especially in the skill positions, during the off season, you lift. Obviously, you're going to lift, but again, I think they should be on the track and doing track workouts during the off season to keep their speed. Like you said, when you're coming off a track season in football, so it's kind of, there's an old saying that, you know, once you become fast, you stay fast. So you keep that sprint speed in you, so you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning and say, okay, you know, we got 12 200s a day at 30 seconds, and we slowly build up. That's track stuff. But when you're in football, you want to keep that speed year round.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate that.
All right.
Coach
Any more
Rick.
questions? Okay.
Coach, just to there's a bunch of coaches and players on this call, and my experience has been that sometimes as coaches and players don't pay enough attention to the stretching before practice and the post-practice stretch. What would your message be about stretching so everybody understands the importance of it?
The idea of stretching is to prevent injury. So you warm up properly, you don't jump into it. It's kind of like when you're a kid, you don't have to worry so much about the stretching aspect, meaning that if you're a kid and someone challenges you to a foot race in the street, go from pole to pole, you don't have to stretch that much. You can get out there and do it. But as you get older, you can't just roll out of bed and jump into a 40 or 100 meters and not expect to hurt yourself. You have to stretch. The muscles are going to grow. Your tendons get stronger. The muscles get stronger. So you need to stretch on a daily basis in order for those muscles to relax, to help strengthen themselves. So as you perform and you lift or you run hard, or you go through a practice, your muscles break down, meaning that they create little tears within themselves. And when they rest, they rebuild. So you want to eat, the right amount of protein and carbs and so forth, so the muscles can rebuild themselves. So as they rebuild themselves, the fibers get stronger, and they become to stretch a little bit, or they help stretches help them regenerate. So the muscles should flow like this. Okay, you have muscle fibers that slide like this. As you get injured, sometimes they'll lock like this. And for let's just we'll call it, say they get. I'm getting a little bit into the science side of things. So we have our skin, and then between the skin and the muscle we have fascia. So it's kind of like if anybody has ever taken skin off of a chicken, if you want to bake chicken, skinless chicken, and you have this thin membrane between the skin and the muscle, it's called fascia. We as people have it also. So sometimes when we get injured, the blood between the skin and the fascia and the muscle, it gets stuck, okay? And it doesn't move. So foam rolling and stretching helps that fascia break down, and it helps the muscle start to slide more. So that part of the stretching sometimes is not even the muscle that's tight, it's the fascia between the skin and the muscle itself. So you foam roll to help break that up, and stretching helps break that up. So I don't know if I got off topic here, but the stretching helps the body recover, regenerate, and just renew the muscle itself. Does that help?
Yeah, Coach. I just wanted you to, get that message across, because I'm guilty of this as well. Many years ago, the players are stretching, we're looking the other way, or the players don't want to stretch when it's finished. They'd rather get out of the field. But putting that emphasis that is a big part of what we do, and looking after the players and giving them longevity to be able to play.
So here's a scenario that might help. So if a player is just going through a stretching routine before a game, he's talking, he's messing around with his friends, not really stretching like he should, and then let's say he's a DB, and on the second play of the game he gets a pick. Now he has to go up the sidelines, and he's running, thinking he got a pick six, and he's starting to lift, and he's starting to pull away from a receiver who's chasing him, and he pulls a hamstring. Why? Because he didn't stretch out and warm up properly. So you want to avoid those injuries in game time situations by just being prepared. It can't hurt to be over prepared. So you want to stretch before the game. You want to sweat. You go through all the routine the right way. You don't do it halfway. So it's going to help you in the long run, help prevent injuries.
Thank you, Coach.
You're quite welcome.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Statements, queries? We're all good?
Sorry, I've got a quick question. Coach Washington, have you kind of seen an influx of players or athletes take up Pilates and yoga? And, also, can you kind of talk about benefits if there's any?
Yeah, there are. One is the stretching aspect, which is obvious, either or, Pilates or yoga. They're both great. They help the body stretch, but even more so, it makes that mind-body connect, mind-muscle connect, meaning that if you have a good instructor, you're going to start to understand that if I am stretching or going through a certain position, you start to feel what muscles are really being used when you are doing that stretching or that exercise they have you do. So there's this muscle mind connect. So it rolls into if you lift, it rolls into if you're sprinting, or if you're a receiver and you have to go up for a high ball and you have to twist and turn in the air. It's almost like being a performing ballet. You have total control of your body when it moves. So the more Pilates and yoga and the mind-body connect things you can do as an athlete is going to help you in your game on the field. You have much more control over what each body part is doing as opposed to just going through the motions. I liken it to a sprinter versus a hurdler. A hurdler is going to have just a tad bit more body awareness because their body as a hurdle has to go through more mechanics. So you're aware of what that trail foot is doing so it doesn't hit the hurdle. You're aware of what that trail knee is doing, and as you come down off the hurdle, what that lead leg is doing to snap down faster. You know what your trail arm is doing versus a sprinter is thinking left, right, my body moving forward, versus a hurdler has to go through many more motions as they run and as they perform. And that rolls over into your performance on the field. You just have more body control. So the Pilates and yoga help an athlete understand their body a little bit more.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Coach. Any final questions, gentlemen? Statements, queries? Nope.
Well, I hope I answered all the questions to your satisfaction, and
you sure did, Coach.
You sure did.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My
thank
pleasure.
You very much.
I enjoyed this.
We did too, sir. We did too. Thank you.
All right. So let me stop sharing the screen, and we are back.
Well, I appreciate you, David. And just let me put emphasis on stretching is vital for athletes to be flexible, to be pliable on the field, because their body gets in all different situations, and the more flexible you are, sometimes the more give it gives you get from your body, and you don't have those injuries. Doing the dynamic warm-ups to get the muscles warmed up is an outstanding thing. And then to do the static stretch it definitely helps. It adds to the flexibility. And then your point, Darren, about these guys not running, they don't run. But if you can make them run, but if you can, as a coach, if you can make them run to the ball, remember how we used to do our pursuit drills?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But if when I got to Baltimore, we quit running. We never ran after practice, but we ran. We made a point that we all had to run to the ball every time we were on the field. I mean, all 11 guys, defensive linemen. This was from our defense. Defensive linemen, linebackers, and DBs. Everybody had to get to the ball every single time, every single snap you're on the field, and that made us really well conditioned. I mean, because we were having, we had 30-some snaps in a practice, first team from 7-on-7 to 9-on-7 to doing all the different stuff that you do during the regular practice. So we had some conditionings, and then every now and then, Brian Billick would make us run afterwards, but it was rare, which is now it's even, rarer that these guys can get out there and do anything. So
yeah.
That was a great job, David.
Thank you, sir.
Great points. And then we got Darren Perry. He's going to expand on the 3-4 and some base coverages and some more fire zones. So, Darren.
Thank you, Wood. Let me share this screen here, and give me 1 second here, and make sure we're all set. Because, like David, I don't have my IT person here with me today, so if we don't get it today, we're going to be in trouble. So let me know if you guys let me know if you guys have that up on the screen there. Can you guys see that first slide? Well, first of all, let me thank you guys for having me back. It is a privilege and an honor to be with you guys this afternoon. I love football. I think I shared this last week that football has afforded me a lot, and so I have a lot to give back. And so anything I can do to help you guys out, help expand the game, I'm all for it. And please feel free to interject, ask questions. I'm going to treat you guys somewhat like my meeting room, just to get everybody's attention. There will be a quiz afterwards, So make sure you guys are paying attention and taking notes. I found over the years when I say that, my guys are just a little bit more alert during the installation period. So there'll be some questions for you guys at the end, and to make sure you guys are paying attention. With that being said, let me just start by saying this. We're talking 3-4, and that's what I grew up in. That's kind of how I cut my teeth. But the one thing I've learned from being with Coach McCarthy in Green Bay is you don't want to be married to one particular scheme. It's all about getting your best 11 football players on the field. And I'm going to give you two teams in the National Football League right now, the Denver Broncos and the Chicago Bears. They have two of the premier pass rushers in the game, in Von Miller and Khalil Mack. They are both outside linebackers in a 3-4 scheme. And we talked about one of the advantages of having a 3-4 compared to the 4-3 is the versatility that you have in terms of designating that fourth rusher and the variations that you can create. But when you have dynamic players like Von Miller and Khalil Mack, you don't want to be dropping those guys in coverage too many times because you want to do what your guys do best. So I just want to state that because I do think that's very important, because when we first went to Green Bay in 2009, we took a defense that was ranked in the bottom third of the league, and we installed our 3-4 that we had in Pittsburgh, and we went to number 2 in the league, and we were strictly a 3-4. But over the years, our personnel department, they were always under the mindset of drafting the best available player. And so our last couple of years, we've kind of gravitated toward being more of a 4-3. And we were able to do that because we weren't married to one particular scheme. And we drafted a guy out of USC by the name of Nick Perry that was better with his hand in the ground. When you have the 3-4, you have more athletic guys on the field, and you're going to ask those guys to drop in coverage a little bit more. So with that being said, I wanted to state that because I think that's a very, very important aspect that you want to keep in mind when you're trying to find out what scheme you want to implement. And like I said earlier, one of the beautiful things about the 3-4 is you can have some 4-3 element built in your scheme, a la Denver, a la Chicago. So if you get a dynamic player, pass rusher, you don't want him dropping 50% of the game, because now your owner going to come in and say, we had this happen. I had a guy come to me in our personnel department. He said, why do we have Clay Matthews dropping 20 some times in our season opener? They didn't understand the scheme, but we were running a 3-4, and that's going to happen at times. Well, he didn't want us dropping Clay Matthews, and so we had to get creative, and we put in some defenses that allowed him to be rushing the passer a lot more during the game. So last week we talked about the tight front, okay? And so I kind of want to build off of that, and I gave you guys two base coverages, tight 1-2 buster, which is a cover 2, 502 deep zone. And we talked about tight Sammy 33, which was a 4 3 deep zone, all building off of the tight front. And that's kind of how we did our installs. We kind of built off of one front, put our coverages in with it, and then we went from there. And so that's the format I want to keep with you guys today. So with that being said, I want to hit a couple pressures off of our base, okay, a couple fire zones that are going to look very similar when the guys line up on the field, but now you are creating pressure with those outside linebackers. So just a quick little review. Last week, how do you designate that fourth rusher? Well, in the tight Will Me To Buster, tight is the front, Will is that weak side outside linebacker. That's telling him he's going to be in the charge. And the two busters telling the secondary and the cover guys what coverage we're playing. So that's how it's built, tight Will Me To Buster. So we're designating our weak outside linebacker in this particular call to be that fourth rusher. As opposed to tight Sammy 33, now we're designating our strong outside linebacker to be that fourth rusher, and now we are dropping the will backer. We put in a fire zone pressure last week, and the 3-4, from a pressure standpoint, it allows you to do a myriad of things. And all the fire zone tells you guys is simply we're bringing 5 rushers down. and you can bring any five you want to bring, and you can call it whatever you want to call it. So you don't necessarily have to pay much attention to our verbiage or the nomenclature that you see up on the screen. I think one of the beautiful things about coaching is giving you guys the ability to put your own spin on it and add, delete, and put it together to where it makes sense to you guys and where your guys can understand it. And that's the thing. Fire zones are zone blitzes, zone dogs. You hear them called throughout the league. People put their own spin on it, but it's the same concept where you're sending some form of 5 rushers, okay, and you're dropping 6 into coverage, whether it's 3 under or 4 under 2 deep zone. The pressure we put in last week was a 4 strong overload look called tight, strong smack fire zone. Now, we called it strong smack because we were bringing our 2 backers to the strong side of the formation to create an overload to the strong side of the formation. Some people call it stab because they're bringing the Sam and the Buck backers. So whoever the Sam backer is, the 2 strong outside, there's 2 strong backers to that side. They're the guys that are in the rush. And that's what we talked about last week with a 5-man pressure, 3 deep zone. And I'll say this, and Rod can attest to this, football is football, and a lot of these coverages guys have been around for years. They may go into hibernation because the league is so trendy and it's a copycat league. They'll find their way coming back. And when we first started doing this back in '94, we all thought that we were called Blitzburg, and we led the league in sacks. I mean, everybody on that defense had a sack, but yours truly. It was unbelievable. And I don't know if you knew that, Rod, but I was the only defensive starter on that unit out of the starting 11 that did not have a sack.
I didn't know that, man.
Yeah. But I had 7 interceptions, though. So I'm not a guy that wanted to get a lot of sacks anyway. So I was fine with that. But that goes back to the variations that you can implement in terms of how do you want to displace your 5 guys. So we have them all with SB and M and B and S and W. You guys can call those guys whatever you want. This is just how we called it in Pittsburgh, and we carried it over into Green Bay. So the strong smack is just a 4 strong overload pressure to the strong side of the formation. So very simply put, designate your strength, and the 2 backers to that side of the formation, they're in the charge. Now, the one thing I did not talk about, but if you look at box number 1 real quick, guys, you'll see the end. As with a lot of the fire zones, that technique we call as a long scoop. And all he's trying to do is create a pick, all right? And he's trying to bring that tackle down so we can either get a one-on-one or some type of confusion in the protection, and we may get a no-touch. But the worst case scenario we say is we're going to get a one-on-one with one of our outside linebackers, a Sam or an inside linebacker on a back, and we expect him to win that matchup. Now, there'll be some times where they'll screw the protection up and we'll get a no-hitter, but we tell our guys, worst case scenario, if they block it up, because if you look at the numbers, they have more than enough to block it up. It's just a matter of which 5 are coming and how they're going to do it. And so we're trying to create the illusion that we're bringing 4 off of the strong side in the strong smack fire zone. And so those were the 3 base defenses that we talked about last week. Also, let me say this. Depending on who you're playing schematically, whether it's 3 receiver sets, 2 receiver sets with 2 tight ends, getting your best 11 on the field, these same defenses can be run out of 5 defensive backs, 6 defensive backs, keeping in mind, how can I get my best 11 on the field? And if this is Von Miller, I want him doing this as much as we can, We don't want him doing this right here because that might get you fired. If he does that too many times, the owner's going to look out there and say, well, why was Von Miller or Khalil Mack playing a crow flat technique when we drafted him to sack the quarterback? So you got to be careful in terms of how much scheme you use. But I will say this, the 3-4, if you don't have the studs, you don't have the athletes, this is where you can get really, really creative and do some things to create some confusion for the offense. But whatever you, throughout the course of the season, whatever your guys do best, and whatever your identity becomes, that's what you play. And if you don't have a great pass rusher coming off the edge, then all these exotic blitzes are great because now you can find a way to drum up pressure. But as a coach, I love to just have 4 guys that I can say, hey, go get the quarterback, and we play base coverage, and we let the guys play, and we let things eat. Because the more exotic you become, the more teaching you have to implement. And so that takes time. And guys, the attention span, some are longer than others. And so that's the challenge that you have when you become heavily scheme-oriented. But this thing gives you a lot of flexibility. So with that being said, today I want to talk about a 3-deep fire zone we called it tight dart inside fire zone. Well, you saw the Sam and the backer coming in the strong smack with a strong side overload. Now we're getting pressure up the middle. And it looks just like tight Sammy 33. It looks just like tight Will Me Too Buster. So now these guys up front on the offensive line, they're like, well, hell, is the Sam coming? Is the Will coming? Oh, no, okay. Oh, both of those guys are dropping. Now we got inside pressure coming up the middle with our 2 inside linebackers. And this is one of the ways where you can get all 11 guys on defense getting sacks because you're bringing a number of them. You can somehow bring the corner if you want. However you want to bring your 5, as long as you have your coverage defined on the back end, guys, you're golden. And the more variation that you have, the more you give offenses something to think about. Because there are times where, hey, if we had a tight split over here with the Z receiver, sometimes we just fire the corner, and we tell the strong safety, you cover him because he's in tight proximity. The further you are away from these guys, the harder they have a chance of seeing you come and the better chance you have of getting a no touch. So the tight dart inside fire zone. Some people may call it BAM. Okay, why do you say BAM? Well, I'm bringing the buck and the Mac, all right, up the middle. So those are the guys that are in the charge. So the more verbiage you can help alert those guys in terms of who's coming, all right, the better chance you'll have of getting the defense executed. Dick LeBeau, who Rod played for a long time, one of his best sayings, because these fire zones and these zone blitzes, they look great when they work, but when they don't work, there ain't nothing worse looking. It really is not. So you got to make sure that you have it, dialed in. You have it taught, and guys understand, because you have to be able to line up and get your alignment, assignment, and technique with that. So I had this drawn up really just versus a 2x2 set and a 3x1, so you get a chance to see the alignments and where guys are going. But again, as I said before, guys, it's just 5 guys coming. However you want to displace those 5 guys in the charge, that is up to you. If you want to straight rush them and say, hey, you know what? We're not even going to worry about long scooping, or we're not even going to wrap the nose around. We're just going to straight rush our guys, because the cross dog, again, all these little things right here, guys, is just to create a little bit of confusion. And that's where your no touches come in, because these guys, they see 2 backers crossing up the middle, and it's like, oh, which way did they go? And next thing you know, you may have a no touch. But again, worst case scenario, you're going to get your buck backer or your Mac backer one-on-one with the back, and we expect him to win that battle. Now, just another coaching point. Again, we talked about the fire zones being a 3-under-3 deep zone. If you look at box 2, the only adjustment, all right, that we made, you can see here, so long as you have the number 2, if it's a 2x2 set, and there's no 3x1 or a displaced number 2, we kept a strong safety in the box, and he played 3 receiver. But anytime we got trips or anytime we had width to the formation, we made a check to put our strong safety on the displaced receiver, and now the back of that was dropping, okay, to that side. We just swapped responsibilities, and that was nothing more for matchup purposes. We didn't want our outside linebacker having to walk out here in box number 3 and have to play a seam technique on a speed wide receiver. So matchups allowed for us to build in checks to get us out of a bad matchup and so forth. And that was nothing more than the communication between the strong safety and the Sam backer to that side. Again, that was tight dart inside fire zone.
Hey, Darren.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
Can you just give them a refresher on with 2 and 3 close?
Yes.
How they can play that?
Yeah. Okay. You have the ability. Well, in the seam technique, it's just like it's a matchup cover 3, guys. And I wouldn't look at it any more than that. It is a matchup cover 3, understanding that we're short a guy because we're taking a guy out of coverage, and now we're entering him into the rush. And so our seam technique for the Sam backer in box number 1 and the Will backer, all that's telling them is, hey, I'm going to match number 2 vertically up the field unless he goes to the flat. If anything crosses my face at the flat, I'm matching it. So I am a vertical 2 carry first until something crosses my face. If I'm the 3 receiver hook player, I'm playing off of number 3. And when we would implement our fire zones, we would tell our guys, in any coverage really, we count from outside in. And if you can get your number count, you match that with your technique. And who am I playing off of? Am I playing off of number 1, like the corners are? Am I playing off of number 2 as a seam player? And if I'm the 3 receiver hook player, where's my number 3? Well, okay, well, my number 3 is out here now. I don't want my outside linebacker having to walk out here, so I'm going to switch responsibilities and put him as a 3 receiver hook player. So the seam players they're carrying number 2 vertical unless something crosses their face. So these guys are basically zoning. They're matching their area coverage in a nutshell. Does that answer your question there, Rod? For the guys out there, and feel free, guys, to interject questions or technique and so forth, because I know it's a lot of verbiage up there, but feel free.
Yeah, we're good. That was good.
Okay, good. That's, again, tight dart inside fire zone. Some people may call that tight bam inside fire zone. Oh, bam. Oh, that tells me who's in the charge. Fire zone tells you the coverage on the back end. So anytime you hear fire zone, we automatically know that is 3 under, 3 deep, where we have a seam player who's playing off of number 2. We have a seam player over here who's playing also off of number 2. And we have a 3 receiver hook player. Those are your 3 underneath defenders. Tampa Bay, I don't know if you guys remember the Tampa teams back when Dungy was there and when he went to the Colts. They were a big Tampa 2 scheme team. That's all they played because they could get after the quarterback with a 4-man rush. So they made a living off of that. And but that was their bread and butter. And everybody knew it, and there was no hesitation. They all understood it, and they were able to go out there and execute it to the highest level. Tight dart inside fire zone. Now, next pressure we want to talk about, we had our 3D pressure. And before I get to this zone dog, I want to say this because, Rod, I'm going to toot your horn here a little bit, because in '94, that was the first year we started doing these fire zones. In the first week we put it in, it worked well. Then the next week we added another one, and we just kept building off of it. And next thing you know, everybody's calling us Blitzburg. What is this? What is everybody doing in Pittsburgh? And, you know, we were the zone blitz team, and it just caught fire. And everybody started doing it. And we were basically a fire zone team, strictly. The only 2 deep coverage that we had, Rod, was we had out of a sub package, we had a dime double sting 2 or 3. That was really our only form of cover 2 on the back end. And that was primarily going back to what I said earlier about what do your guys do best? Well, we had 2 really good corners. We had a Hall of Fame in Rod. I can lean away from him and leave him by himself, and the field will be taken care of. And we kick butt. Well, the next year, Rod gets hurt in the season opener, and our other starting corner gets hurt. He's coming off of a major knee injury. So we're depleted out there. And we're like, well, man, how can we still be a zone blitz team and still get pressure on the quarterback, but protect ourselves on the back end, because our corners on the outside can't hold up. We can't run these tight darts inside fire zones. We can't run tight dart or strong smack. We can't do that because our corners, understanding our personnel. So what do? We got a little more creative, and we said, oh, you know what? Let's take the fire zones out. And Rod, we went strictly, I think we changed almost all of our fire zones to form of gold coverage, because we wanted to protect our corners. So we didn't want these guys in one-on-one situations on the outside. So we were light here on the outside. So we said, hey, you know what? Instead of playing fire zone, we're going to turn it to gold. It's still a 5-man pressure, but now we have help on the outside because we were getting so much pressure. Quarterbacks were just dropping the ball on the outside, and our corners were either, they were having a tough time. So we had to help those guys out. So we allowed those guys to get closer, because we said, hey, listen, we're going to give you guys help over the top with the strong safeties. And that's what we did. But look who's coming in this particular pressure. Now we got our Sam and our Will. And we didn't have to worry about either one of those guys dropping. So the owner loves this. He said, you don't have to worry about Clay Matthews dropping now. We're going to sing Clay every single time now. And we don't have to worry about that. So this is another situation that still looks just like tight Wumi to Buster, like we talked about last week. Still looks like tight Sammy 33 from the get-go. But now, instead of us bringing our two inside backers or our strong or our weak outside backer, now we're bringing double-edge pressure. Some people will call this a Sam Will, two key. Like I say, you can call it whatever you want. And the two key is or the goal concept to us switched us now to a 4 under 2 deep zone. So now we got 4 underneath defenders in both of our corners and our 2 backers. We talked about our number count. Corners, you are always aligning off for number 1. Our 2 inside backers that are in coverage, you got to play off of the number 2s. If it's a 3-by-1 set like you see in box number 2, now they push over and now they got to play off of 2 and 3. And they have the ability to go in and out, understanding that, hey, I got help in the flat and I got help over the top in both of my safeties. And so the gold coverage told the corners nothing more than this. I'm keying. That's why I mentioned earlier about you might hear some people call it saw-2 key. Well, all the corners are doing, they're keying number 2. They're keying number 2. If 2 comes to the flat right now, the corner gets to jump it. All right, and the safety will push over to number 1. So long as number 2 is vertical, the corner will kind of cushion and he'll help the safety out up the field. But he's keying number 2. In the box number 2, any one of those guys. So now it's a 3-by-1 formation. So they're going to key 2 and 3 now. So any one of these guys coming to the flat, the corner has an opportunity to jump it and an opportunity to make a play on the ball, takes pressure off of him and having to be in a one-on-one situation with a Julio Jones or Odell Beckham. We don't want those guys in one-on-one situations with that. So this would be a great opportunity for us to play a little bit more gold coverage if we have a stud receiver that we don't feel good about our matchup. Tight sting gold, tight front, quarterback comes up to the line of scrimmage, it all looks the same. Oh, who's that 4th rusher? Oh, man, is it going to be the Sam? Is it going to be the Will? Is it going to be the Buck? Is it going to be the Mac? Oh, man, it's both of those guys. And then you can even get a little more exotic, and you can bring all 4 of them if you want. I mean, and now you got a lights out pressure. And so those are some of the variations that you can create with the 3-4 personnel, okay, with the tight front, because it all looks the same. And so when a quarterback comes up to the line of scrimmage, he has no indicator in terms of who that 4th rusher is. Now, if you notice in box number 1, you see that dotted line on the end going to the back. Well, we want to have an answer in case they do run a screenplay or if they somehow sneak the back up in the middle, because we're not expecting our nose from a 0 alignment to get much pressure on the quarterback. He's basically just pressure rushing. He's just creating push. And if there's a screen, he's got eyes on the back and he can come off and help us out a little bit. But we're expecting our pressure to come in this defense off of our Sam and our Will backer. Anything we get out of the end, the nose, that's a bonus. If they screw up the protection and they panic and they turn one of those guys loose, great. We'll take that. But we know with this particular defense, we're going to get Von Miller or Khalil Mack, or we got 2 studs on the outside. We're going to get them in a one-on-one situation, probably with the back, and they're going to win that. If you tell Von Miller that one of these backs, Dalvin Cook or Devontae Freeman, one of those backs, they have to block him on every single play, he's going to be foaming at the mouth. He's going to take that matchup, and as a defensive coach, I'll take that matchup on every single play. Tight sting goal. 4 under, 2 deep, zone dog, okay, with the corners keying number 2 or 3. Okay, so I said 2, but again, it could be 3 because if they flared the back right now in box number 1, that corner's coming off. And the good thing about this right here, it's a pressure, but now you're playing with your eyes. Everybody can see the quarterback. So now when you get the quick throw, everybody can break on it. And that's what you're counting on, as opposed to when you're playing your man pressures. Now everybody's got their eyes on their coverage and you don't have as much vision on the quarterback. Vision to break was the term that Coach LeBeau used to always say. And our fire zones and our goal, vision to break, vision to break. We're expecting the ball to come out quick, but if it doesn't, we still have to hold up in coverage because we can't sell the farm, because at the end of the day, we're still only bringing 5 guys. And so some teams, to counter that, they'll keep the tight ends in the block. So if you don't think you're going to get vertical routes up the field, you're putting yourself, in a vulnerable situation, because once teams figure that out, they may button it up and they may max protect and give that quarterback time to get the ball up the field. So you also have to keep that in mind. Tight sting goal. Any questions on that, guys, before I move on to the next coverage? But this was because of you, Rod, just so you know.
Coach Perry, question for you.
Yes, sir.
If you have a team that kind of runs like a high-low concept, how do the Mike and backer handle that?
They're playing, we designate the inside element player. So let's go. That's a great question, Dan. Great question. All right. And so, and as a coach, the one thing we always try to do, and I learned this from Coach LeBeau, you try to give our guys as much same as we can. So I don't know if were you here last week for the 2-buster install, Dan? Well,
it was not.
This is a little bit of the carryover from the 2-buster. And David should probably know this, right, David? Because this is your 3rd time hearing it, right? You got that buster technique taken down, right, David? I'm just teasing, David. No, but Dan, to go back to your question, we would tell the buck and the Mac, they're playing vertical hook off of 2 and 3. So the inside element, he would be the high player, and the buck would be the low player. So if you got any type of high-low concept, Y up the field and F under, the buck would have to take that, and the Mac would stretch vertically with that. So they're playing in and out, but you have to designate who's the low player. Rob, remember when we first implemented this, we called it the option trail. I don't think they call that anymore. When we put in Buster, we said, who has the option trail? And that was you the majority of the time, because you were the Sam backer when we went to sub. And so that high-low concept, or option trail, as Dan just referred to it as, that's what they call it now, the high-low concept, out of 2 and 3. But we called it an option trail because early on, because that F, if he felt a body sitting inside, he would just whip back out and so forth, depending on how you guys would play it. And Dan, you could change that up based off the concepts that you're getting. You could change that up, because if you make that statement that you said, okay, and this is where you got to be careful at, and guys have to be able to play off of what they see. We talked about if the Mac in box number 2 being the high player. Well, what if Y right now ran shallow cross and F went vertical? Well, now there's some space in between that 2 and 3, and now that buck has got to get on his horse, and he's really got to chase. Well, we always say right now, if 3 goes away right now, then your responsibility is flip-flop, because that doesn't make any sense. So common sense football would come into play. So, and I'll even take it further now, because it really comes into play now, Dan, if you go to box number 4, and now you have spacing. You got spacing between 2 and 3, all right? So they come out of the huddle, and if there's no communication, if there's no spacing, if there's spacing, we already defined it. Hey, Mac, you're the high player, Buck, you're the low player. Well, now they got spacing, and if that W just shoots across the field right now, that Buck is in a tough situation right there. So we said, hey, the thing that trumps that, if 3 goes away right now, all bets are off, all right? You lock on your coverage, understanding that my next help is going to come where? In the flat, because I have a corner out here keying 2 or 3, breaking to the flat, which should take some of the panic off of the underneath guys in terms of, how they want to match things up, and keeping in mind that I still have a safety sitting over the top who's, we're hoping that you elevate the throw. So now we have vision to break, and when we see the ball being thrown, now we can break on it. So understanding the matchups and how you want to do that. And so and that could change, Dan, based off of what you're playing, the route concepts that you're getting. So again, try not to be married to one particular way. Put it in, give the guys some same as, but then you have to be able to have some flexibility and tweak it, okay? If you're playing against a team that's going to stress your coverage and put you in a bad situation. But you want to try to give them as much same as, but at the same time, you have to be smart. And we talked about this last week as a coach. If you don't have answers, you're going to be in trouble, because football is the game of adjustments. And once teams find out what you're doing, because they study you. And we used to see them all the time. We used to see fire zone beaters out the rear end, because teams studied us after that 94 season. Man, every offense in the National Football League was studying in Pittsburgh. How can we block up these fire zones? And so then, man, we start seeing the whole kitchen sink and we were back on our heels. And so we had to find a way, okay, now we got to come up with something a little bit more. We got to change our rules a little bit because now they're using our rules against us. Okay, so now we have to counter that. And so that's what we ended up having to do. And so that's why I say that to you, to have some flexibility and try to, give them some same as, and give them a set of base rules, and let them play them out. But you still, as a coach, that's your responsibility to say, hey, listen, guys, this week, based off of what we're saying, this is how we want to play, particularly if you're playing against a team and you studied them all week long and these are their staples and you're looking through and you're looking at your coverages and you're like, man, this is going to be a tough route, or how will we play this versus tight steam goal? And you encourage your players to ask questions. You're watching a route concept on video. Coach, how do you see that playing versus a tight steam gold or a strong smack fire zone? And that's what I would encourage my players to do during the meeting. Or I would even ask them, because sometimes players don't want to ask questions and they're sitting there like, they're sitting in the chair. You can see the look on their face like, well, that's a tough route right there. I wonder how we play that in goal. I want to ask coach because he's going to think I don't know, or he's going to think it's a dumb question. So I take the onus and say, Dan, how do you see this playing versus tight steam goal? You got a better way, or you think this is the best way to play it? And sometimes you put the ownership on the players, because when they believe it and they have ownership, they're going to sure as hell make it work because they suggested it and said, well, coach, I think we want to play it this way. And then when it doesn't work, you say, hey, well, you guys suggested that. But at the same time, keep in mind that ultimately the decision is going to come down to you and whoever's installing and whoever has final say in terms of how it's being played. But that's a great question right there, Dan. Great question.
Hey, Dan, why don't you ask the question? You had the inside fire zone question about the second blitzer.
Yeah. The question is with your mic or even, if it was the backer, another way, if that second blitzer's coming through and let's say you got, power or run opposite, would he keep his blitz path or would he pull out of it?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. That's another great question, because we haven't talked much about the run, all right? And although we're in a zero nose and we're just in a base 3-4 look, everybody has a gap. So if you look at those arrows there, that's the beautiful thing about this particular coverage. And guys, I was trying to find some video and I had some, but I just somehow couldn't get them implemented into my PowerPoint. But these inside fire zones, they're great versus the run, because unlike cover 2, you got an 8-man front. And in Pittsburgh, that strong safety, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a guy by the name of Troy Polamalu. He was a guy that loved to just stack over the ball. He didn't want to go check sky, where with the strong safety would come out on number 2. He wanted to stay in the box because he was going to be free. And he would just scrape to the ball. And all he had to understand was, where is the gap? I'm looking for that same gap that running back is looking for. So I'll give you a great point. So let's go to box number 2, all right? And we tell the guys sometimes they can read out of it sometimes, but it's still gap sound. So if everybody just holds their gap, and we just tell this guy right here, the strong safety Troy, who was really, really good, and we coach him up, because all of our defenses, you want to have a primary support, a secondary support, which is 2 guys outside, 9 guys inside out. 2 guys outside of your primary force, secondary force in your corner most of the time, unless it's cover 2. All right, and then you got 9 guys inside out in the ball. And that's how you play run defense. So in box number 2, the coaching point that I would tell the Troy as a secondary guy, all right. Actually, we check sky here. So boom, we're here, nose is here, the end is right here. And now that Will player, he's just going to fit that B gap. So Troy in this box right here, he's got the force as a seam player. He has the force, right? You're gapped out. So everybody just holds their gap and you're dead. So let's go back to box number 1, because this is the one right here where Troy made a lot of plays right here. All right. So if you look at all the gaps right now, we'd always tell them, hey, Troy, if you get a 2-by-2 formation and you're playing 3-receiver hook, what gap is open right now? No matter where that ball goes, if they run an outside zone, okay, or a stretch play or a inside zone over here to the left, you got to be slow to go, because that running back, inside zone, he's probably going to wind that thing all the way back. And if you're slow to go, knowing that those front side gaps are taken care of, you can make a lot of plays. And that's where you have to understand, where's my run fit? Where's the weakness of this defense right now? Well, hell, I got my Sam backer over here. He's playing force. He's seen. So he's not going to let the ball get outside. The Will backer over here, he's seen. He's got force. All right. He's not going to let the ball get outside. And that's what these terms up here means. Who has the force? And that's why we were always, and if you look at Pittsburgh, that's the one reason why they were always ranked in the top 5, top 3 in run defense, because every defense always had a support in terms of who's my primary. And we would echo that out, either through hand signals, verbally, or just an understanding. But every defense had a support. And backer support told everybody that the backers weren't going to let the ball get outside. If it's cloud support, that meant the corners had it in cover too. If it's sky support, that meant the strong safety had to support. And he was telling everybody on defense, hey, that the ball isn't getting outside of me. I'm going to turn it back to my other 9 guys coming inside out on the ball. Great question right there, Dan. But this was a defense that I'm willing to bet you, I coached Troy his first 4 years in the league. If he had to pick a defense, he'd play. Let's play some form of inside fire zone. Now you don't have to necessarily do it out of a tight front. We're working and we're focusing on a tight front today, but you can certainly do this out of an open side reduction, okay, where you set your 3 technique to the open side. And so now that B gap to the open side would be his gap if it was a 2-by-2 formation right here. So a lot of it is just looking at it and saying, okay, what gap? Okay, because that H, he's going to be looking for the same gap. If that H starts front side and he sees this, he sees that, shit, he's going to come all the way back here. And we got our strong safety right there sitting and make a play. And people are wondering on film, like, man, what is Troy doing? How could he be in the backfield? But he would already know that. So a lot of times Troy would just take the onus and say, I'm going to trust all my front side guys. Ball's going this way here, Troy's going that way. And everybody's like, what the heck is he doing? The ball's going front side. He's coming, he's trusting the rest of the defensive players that, hey, this ball isn't going to get outside. Can it? Does it happen sometimes? Yeah, but sometimes Troy would say, hey, you know what? And that's where you had to be really, really careful with him. If you give him too much information, he would just – he was one of those guys that were and Colin Powell used to have this saying that you can't wait to get 100% of the information to make a decision. Sometimes you got to get 60. Sometimes you got to get 70. And then you got to go with your gut. Well, Troy, on the other hand, sometimes Troy would get about 10%. He'd go. He would even wait till he got to 50. He would go. But that's sometimes the free spirit, if you will. He had that type of instinctive ability, and you didn't want to take that away from him. And so this was a defense that we ran a lot. And Pittsburgh still runs it to this day. And it was a cross dog. And everybody runs it down, and it's a staple throughout the league. It's just a cross dog. We were running this rod with Levon Kirkland and Chad Brown back in '94. This is one of our first ones. And people were like, man, I want to see that cross dog. What is that? What is that thing called? And there was nothing more than inside fire zone. And then we did it out of our sub package, and we called it magic fire zone, where we lined up in a 3-2 look. Okay, and we just ran out 2 inside linebackers. And you can run it to the open side with your cross dog or your buck and your mac, or you can run to the open side. We just sent our nose in box number 1 here, Dan. We just sent him to the open side just to say, hey, you know what? Teams, if it's balanced, or we're just going to send it to the left, just because most teams are right-handed. But you can certainly send the nose the other direction, because the other thing, too, is now you're inside linebacker. Sometimes they might start fighting in terms of, I don't want to be first, because you got to have that sacrificial lamb, and somebody's got to take one for the team. And so it's like, well, I don't want to go first this time. Or, because it's like, man, if I go first, then I'm probably going to get blocked, and let me be the second hitter, And so you have to manage that a little bit too. So, but again, hopefully you have selfless players and guys that will give it up for the team. So great question on the inside fire zone. Any other questions on that, guys? Good. Moving right along. So we're going to get out of that, and we're just going to get back into a couple sub defenses. Rod's familiar with this one here. This was the Seattle, San Francisco, all the, the Pete Carroll disciples, Bradley, San Francisco. What's the guy in San Francisco now, Rod? Oh, God, I can't think of his name. He was getting a lot of airtime this year. Robert Saleh. Saleh. Yeah, this is their deal. And when an offense has called this nothing more, Dan, and all you guys out there, they call this nothing more than safety insert. This defense has been around since, but I know it's been around forever. And some people call it 3 buzz or safety insert, because they just look at the displacement. They see the safety coming inside and not playing curl flat. They call it safety insert. Well, you can safety insert strong or weak. The one that we're talking about today, he's inserting strong. And this is good if you're scheming against a team on third down and you're getting a lot of strong side combinations. Now this gives you an opportunity now to go 5-on-2 or 5-on-3, depending on how they disperse their receivers. But now you're overloading your coverage to the strong side. And this is what Seattle, they brought this back and made this defense famous. Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, I mean, they had Richard Sherman on the outside, again, playing to their strengths. So they can play single high. Did they see some three beaters and did they see some routes that would stretch their coverage over time? Absolutely, because offenses, that's what they do. Once they found out what you're doing, and guys like Kyle Shanahan who study you like no other, they're going to find ways to scheme you and play against your rules. And so we used to see it all the time. They would get a ton of like second man through the zones, Seattle, where the curl flat defender, where we called him a buzz defender. They just played it with true curl flats where they would get second man through the zones, wheel routes, and those types of things that would create some confusion for those guys. But it was nothing more than just a safety insert, strong or weak, and they let Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor play. If going back to personnel, guys, we talked about 3-4. If I got Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas, I certainly don't want to be playing a whole lot of cover two. I don't want to be playing Cam Chancellor 14, 15 yards deep in the half field. These are the coverages I'm going to play. I'm going to play some safety insert to where now he can be closer to the line of scrimmage and he can play football and he can do what he does best. So what do your players do best? Okay. What is your identity? What are you going to feature? This is what we're going to be based off of the personnel that we have. Again, not marrying to one particular scheme or trying to put a square peg in a round hole. What do my guys do best? We can get pressure on the quarterback with our forward down guys. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to let it eat. We got a shutdown corner in Richard Sherman, and that's what they're going to play. So in this defense here now, guys, it changes off of strength. You can make it blackboard and just have your nickel. If you look at box number 3, you can make it blackboard to where, like we did here, where the nickel would stay left and right, or you could even run the nickel over, and it's always a safety insert strong. The thing that this does, and this is where we got to later on, because offenses, when they know that the nickel stays left, they know you're playing some type of zone. So we got to the point to where we tried to make it look like man as much as we could. So we would take man alignments, and still play our insert to the final strength of the formation. So now, and you see this, pretty common, particularly on third down, you'll see this slot receiver. Sometimes most of the time he'll just yo-yo motion, and all he's doing is just trying to get pre-snap information because he knows that if that nickel player runs with him, I'm getting man-to-man, so now I want to try to run my man beaters. If I get this yo-yo motion, he comes back and the nickel just stays here. I got zone, and so now, they're playing zone, so now I feel a little bit easier. Now I'm going to have some windows to throw it in. So that's where sometimes if you just keep your guys left and right, the offense can get some information. And so we got to the point where we made these guys we manned the line. We told the dime, you find the tight end and the nickel or the star player. Some people call them the star and the money player. You find your matchup, just that slot, and you run with them, and we'll insert to the final strength of the formation. So again, and this will be a great look right here. And this is what Seattle would do. All right. So if you look at box number 4, all right, you got the tight end over here. So they would take their dime player and put him on the tight end. All right. And the nickel player would be on the slot receiver. So when they got when Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, if they come out and they see that dime or money backer on the tight end, now they're thinking man-to-man, or they don't really know because they play their zones. They man a lot on their zones, so they're not sure what it is. So they can't get that information. Well, let's yo-yo this receiver here and just see what happens, If the nickel stays, now we know we got zone, and so now they'll slow it down a little bit. And Aaron was great at this. Aaron was great. Aaron Rodgers, when I say Aaron was great just at your mannerisms, because you'll see a lot of corners or slot players, when they're playing man-to-man, their body language changes. They're tight. They got their eyes clued in on the numbers, and they're not looking at the quarterback. And so right now, no matter what disguise you think you may be showing, don't be the duck to give it away. We always say, don't be the duck, because they're gonna look out there and say, this is man-to-man. You can move around and do this and do that. But based off of mannerisms, sometimes that can be another indicator in terms of giving the quarterback a pre-snap read. So with that being said, that's the 50 inside strong or a safety insert, and you can do this strong or weak. You can keep your nickel and your dime left and right. You can man a line, like in this situation right here. All right, because they'll study you. They'll say like, oh, when they're playing zone, these two birds, they stay apart. They're never on the same side. They're never on the same side in zone. So it's like, oh, you know what? We got something for that. You know, we're going to man a line. So we're going to take our dime player, boom, you going to the tight end, and now we're just going to push the buck over here. So now they don't know. And that's how you answer that question. Keep it in mind, can our guys handle it, and how much can our guys handle? Am I playing against an elite quarterback? Am I playing against a Tom Brady? If I'm not playing against an elite quarterback, you know what? We may not have to do all that stuff. We're just going to line up and we're going to let our guys play. Because you know what? At the end of the day, my personnel is better than yours, and we're going to out-execute you. And so we're not going to try to fool you. But there are going to be times where you're going to have to do that. Safety insert is what what offense would probably call that, or some type of 3 buzz. They would do it. Now, the complement to it, I just mentioned earlier, 1 robber. We called it 51. You know, the 5 is nothing more that we're in just our, nickel, defense, okay? And it's cover 1. It's just a 1 robber. Another defense that Seattle made. And I had to do a study on these guys, and that's why I kind of know a little bit more about Seattle, even though I wasn't there, is I was a third down specialist in Green Bay. And the one, I don't know, it was maybe 16, or Seattle was always in the top defense. But third down in particular, they were 1 or 2 in terms of third down percentages. Once they got you to third down, they were really, really good. And these were the 2 coverages that I saw the most. I saw safety insert weak, and I saw 1 robber. Well, why do you want to play 1 robber? Well, guess who this guy is coming down? That's either going to be Earl Thomas or that's going to be Cam Chancellor. So I'm going to let these guys play ball. I don't want to play cover 2 with them a whole lot. I'm going to let these guys get closer to the ball, let them use their instincts, okay, and play football. I'm getting tight coverage, same deal in the run. So if they do want to give you some type of sub run, you got a safety coming down, all right, where you're going to be gapped out. And so now you just have to define that open gap, because you got enough to fill every gap. It's just a matter of, how am I going to align my defensive front? Am I going to have my 3 to the close side like most people do on third down, their 3 technique to the tight end side? Or am I going to get some type of open side reduction? And if that does, that changes my run gaps if a team wants to run the ball on third down. But these 2 coverages complement each other, and you can see why I mentioned earlier about man aligning. Because now with the dime and the nickel, obviously 2 by 2 is a little bit easier to find. But watch when you get to 3 by 1. 3 by 1, if you got this look right here, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, they know right now, okay, the dime back is over to the tight end. That's some type of man-to-man. Well, if I go safety insert and I tell my dime, you're going to man a line, and now you're just going to play your technique, okay, your technique to your coverage. So now, as the dime being on number 3, he knows he's a hook defender. It is still, no matter how you slice and dice it, it is a 4 under, 3 deep zone, this safety insert. But if you man a line, you got an opportunity to create a little bit of confusion on the offense and so forth. But these 2 coverages, particularly if you man a line, they complement one another. There'll be some formations that they may get some indicators, and they may know what you're doing pre-snap based off of, some teams will empty reload. Some teams will start out and they'll take the back and shift him out here to see if the backer will go, or if they'll put the back out at number 1. And they'll see if the corner's on him, or if they'll see if the safety's on him, or backer. If he's out at number 1 and the corner's on him, they know some type of zone, because they say, well, we know they ain't going to put their corner on a running back. And if the backer goes out there, now they know some type of man-to-man. And they would just do that just to get pre-snap information. And we would just call that, empty reload. So they start out an empty, put the back out there on third down just to see how you adjust. And then they put him back in the backfield, and then they run their third down, concepts. And they go from there. But just trying to get pre-snap information, guys. Any questions? 1 robber.
Don't be shy, gents.
Please. I know that was a lot of information. I took out some slides because I'm looking at, I had to critique myself the last time. There was a lot of words on those slides that we had last time that it meant something to me, because, that was part of our scheme. but I tried to simplify it and take some of those words out of there, because at the end of the day, it's understanding the concept and the type of coverage it is. 4 under, 3 deep, 5 under, 2 deep for the two-buster. In the fire zones, 3 under, 3 deep are gold coverages, 4 under, 2 deep zone with the corners keying the number 2 receivers, and having that nose, keeping some eyes on the back.
Hey, Darren, well,
yes.
A question, 2 questions.
Yes.
So if you're in your 51 or your 3 buzz, and they got in a bunch set, what would you guys call in the 3 buzz and the 51? Give me both answers to those.
Well, we wouldn't do anything with those, Rod, because the safety, only thing, well, I take that back. The one thing we may do, if we had a true bunch, we may take the insert, because you have the ability to go strong or weak with the insert. But if we got bunch formations and so forth, we would, a lot of times that would trump it, and that would put us into the insert to the bunch side. That'd be the only adjustment we'd make there. If we were in our one robber, we would just tell everybody to just make sure, the coverage people, make sure you're at different levels, because you got that safety dropping down in the hole. So just make sure that we're not in a pick situation, and that everybody's playing outside leverage. You can see here, when we go one robber, Rob, we were thinking more so of giving the outside corners and the nickel help as opposed to the dime. We figured the dime can handle the tight end. Right. But if that tight end is a stud, a Rob Gronkowski, or the guy that you have in Seattle, Kittles, who plays the game like a wide receiver, we treat him like a wide receiver, and we tell the dime backer, whoever's covering him, we say, you play just like a DB, you play outside leverage, and now we tell that free safety, you're looking to make a name call, or you're looking to help out. And we let that free safety, Rob, and the one robber, he had the ability to name call and call a guy off if he got a quick inside breaking route. Right. Then that guy would replace him in the hole. Otherwise, if they didn't hear a name call, they stayed on their coverage with outside leverage, and we just let our free safety or our strong safety, whoever's coming down in that little 12-yard dig area, play football and play off for the quarterback.
So no lock banjos out of that bunch set, just all man locked up, and they got that inside help?
Only because we got help inside. We know we got help inside. If we didn't have, we were playing one of our man pressures, okay, where we didn't have that robber in there, then we would get into some of our traffic calls and so forth, and different types of man adjustments to help us in any type of pick situation. But we tried to stay away from it if we had a robber player sitting in there understanding that, hey, any one of these guys come inside, you know what? First of all, if I got a player in there, Cam said they're not going to want to come inside. But if they do, they know I got Cam sitting right there, or whoever that robber is, looking to help them out so they can feel comfortable in holding their outside leverage. Because now I got low hole help from my free safety in that 12-yard dig area. And the further they get up the field, I got my free safety, that strong safety, sitting in the deep part of the field. So I should feel very comfortable playing my outside leverage and knowing where my help is.
Okay,
good
so
question,
then if you got 51 and a robber, and he calls somebody off, that robber's taking his guy, and is he dropping off?
Yeah, he replaces the robber in the hole. Right. He replaces the robber in the hole. Exactly. And those are the things too, Rod. Coverages like this right here, this is where you film study, okay? Because this would be a call that we'd feature on third down. And most teams, they're gonna, do what they do best. And they may have a couple little wrinkles, from week to week. But for the most part, we're going to take away what they do best, make them do something that they don't want to do or they haven't done, make them show us something new, and then we'll be ready to adjust. But we're going to take away, through our film study, what you do best, okay, and try to put our guys in the best position to defend that.
Right. Now, what if they get in, just say we're in a 51, you go back to the 2x2, and they got a stack receivers? Are you locking that, or are they going to play top hat? Can they play something? Can they work together?
Yeah, they could play in and out forms of it, like you're saying, with the top hat and so forth. But still keeping in mind, at the end of the day, I want to make sure I got good outside leverage, because I want to force everything back in here where my help is.
Right. Just to let the audience know, top hat means the gentleman. So there's going to be 2 receivers stacked together. The guy that's on the line of scrimmage, he's going to have the guy off the ball, and the guy that's the DB that's behind him, he's going to have the guy on the ball. That's
Exactly.
what top hat means.
Yes. And I don't know if you guys are, well, I don't know if we talked about that last week, but normally that when just to add to what Rod is saying on that top hat, when they get in those stack and bunch alignments and so forth, typically it's not 100% because good offenses will change things up. That point guy is typically the vertical runner. And so the top hat gives you an opportunity to get hands on him and slow him down a little bit and just kind of distort their matchups and give the offenses something a little bit different that they haven't seen before. So that's what the top hat is, and it gives you a chance to be aggressive on that point guy, and not let him get vertically up the field as quick as he would like to.
Coach Perry, question for you from a
Yes,
technique standpoint. How
Yes,
do you
sir.
teach the press technique in terms of footwork?
Well, first of all, it's I always say it's your feet and your hands. Your feet and your hands have to work together and so forth. And a lot of people, I mean, there's some variations and so forth. Rod can probably attest to this. Most good receivers, they're not going to let you get two hands on them. I mean, if you're an NFL quality receiver and a corner can get both hands on you on your release, you're probably a 3 or you know. But the good ones, they're not going to let you do that. I mean, that's it. But teams will try that, and it sounds good in theory, okay? But the reality of it is really, you know, the good ones aren't going to let you do that. And to me, this is just my own personal belief. When you're two-hand jamming, I put that more so with cover 2, okay? Because I know I got help over the top because, man to man, you're going to win at the line of scrimmage. And I used to tell my guys all the time, I can tell who's going to win that battle at the line of scrimmage, all for the release. Did you give him a clean release? Did you give him free access? Did you distort him just a tad bit? Did you make him chop a little bit? Did you get hands on him along with your feet? Because they have to work in sync. It can't just be your hands and you're lunging, and now you've locked your hips, or now you've opened the gate with your feet. So you really have to be patient and have your eyes in the right spot and have your hands and your feet working together, thinking, this is me, thinking that I want to press the release. Opposite hand, opposite the release. So now I'm going with him. So pressure release technique is to me is that ensures you that, you know what, I'm not going to get myself beat at the line of scrimmage and so forth by lunging or locking my hips by jamming with the wrong hand or lunging, you know, and now get myself out of whack.
Yeah, I mean, punching with the opposite hand, the release, you know, what we always call it the corner position is getting out at the 45. So if you get out at a 45-degree angle, you're always on the upfield shoulder, and it allows you to disrupt their timing, but also you can disrupt the timing because if he speed releases and you don't get the touching, all right, so he got a wide release as a receiver, you don't get the touching. But even if you go at a 45, that means he has to go wider in his release, which throws off the timing.
Yes.
Receiver and quarterback. So, you know, the way we always talked about is that offense lives in time. They're about timing. They need that timing. We don't live in time. We are here to disrupt the timing with our bodies, with our hands, with body position, whatever it could be. You know, that was always our mindset at the corner position. Always punch with the opposite hand. Every blue moon, the dude to try to release you. If he had Chris Carter, you know, DeAndre Hopkins, who's playing today, he'll release right into you because he's strong. So you might get your two hands on him, but it's rare to none that you get two hands on a guy, Dan.
And I'm not saying not to teach that because know your personnel. If you can do that, then that's great because it's not every day. And you even look at the college level and you look at all the colleges out there, how many NFL receivers do you see the kids at Ohio State facing in the Big Ten week in and week out? I mean, you'll see some in the SEC, you'll see some in the ACC, you'll see them kind of spread out. But I know the kid at Ohio State, and this is not to take anything away from him, but I just remember as a coach when you're scouting guys and you're looking at their college film, the first thing I would do if I'm looking at a corner or say any DB for that matter, I'm like, okay, let me find a tape with a good quarterback and a good wide receiver. And you're looking at the Big Ten, you're like, well, man, I'm going to be hard-pressed to find. I don't know if they have an NFL receiver coming. They may have one out of Ohio State. They may have one out of Michigan. But week in and week out, a lot of guys aren't going up against NFL receivers, you know, on a constant basis in a sense. So you'll see it a little bit more, and it's easy to teach at that level. But I think the more elite you become, the tougher it is to be able to do that, because everybody's good now. I mean, and Odell Beckham, he's not going to let you get two hands on him. So we can sit here and he might even let you get one on him, man. You might be lucky to flatten him a little bit or widen him out. And that might be all you can get, But again, Rod said the flatter you make him go, now you're disrupting the timing and so forth. And depending on the quarterback, if you're high shoulder, now you got to be ready for your back shoulder fades. If you're a low shoulder, now they're probably just going to throw it out there and let him run underneath of it and so forth. So, they got answers. And so based off of your technique and your position and so forth, and you see colleges now, executing the back shoulder fades, based off of the position of the DB and his location relative to the receiver. But that's a good question, and I'm glad you interjected on that, Rob, because obviously Rob was one of the best to do it. And if I'm gonna believe anybody, that's the guy I want to believe, because I've seen him do it. And but I know what happens is over time, theoretically, a lot of things will sound good on paper, and you have to be realistic in what you're asking your players to do. And I go back to Coach LeBeau. He said, I'm never going to ask you to do something that I don't think you can do. And because now as a coach, I'm failing you. And as much as I love my scheme and as much as I want to run this particular defense, now I'm putting you at jeopardy, and I'm jeopardizing the whole team because I'm so married to my scheme that I'm being a little bit selfless, and I'm not being creative enough to keep you out of a tough situation. It's all about matchups at the end of the day.
Coach, I had a question on the previous slide that you had.
The safety insert, that one there, or are we talking sub or?
Unfortunately, I didn't catch the name.
Coach, I think it was the 51 with the trips.
51 with the trips, okay, yeah. Right here?
Yeah, that's the one. Okay,
yeah.
So
yes.
On the basis that we play NCAA rules, does the movement or the reads of the safeties change depending on whether the ball, whether it's boundary or field?
Well, see, we in the NFL, because our hash marks are a little bit tight, we never had to deal with that. You could bring your robber down from the field. You could bring him down from the boundary. To me, when you put this coverage in, you want to find out where's the ball going, okay? And then that will determine, because a lot of times we let these safeties, determine who's going to be that robber. We start from a two-shell look, but sometimes based off of the route concepts, all right, we may keep our strong safety down to the side. We always felt that coming away from that. Oh man, what happened? Did I lose it there? Let me see here. I hit something there. Give me 1 second here, guys. I hit something. Got a little carried away there. Let's see. All right, ready? Give me 1 second here. Oh, you know what I did? I think I ended my slide. So give me 1 second here. I'm gonna have to click back to that there. Share. And I thought we almost had it without any glitches today. Not so fast. 1 second here. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. Can you guys see that there?
No.
Oh, hold on 1 second.
Coach Washington's killing himself right now.
Oh, I know. Hold on. We got it. I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to do this without my daughter today. And Rod's going to be proud of me. How's that? Ta-da!
Cool.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Al. Go ahead, buddy. I don't know if I answered the question or not, but a lot of times we would try to bring that safety away from the nickel player, because this typically on third down, and this is not always, that slot receiver in a lot of situations, or the guy they want to get the ball to on third down, the possession team, they'll put their best receiver in the slot. But if that's Odell Beckham, we may, we may tell the safety this week, hey, you know what, you guys are on your own over here. We're going to look to help out of here wherever we're going to bring our robber down where it's needed. So you don't have to be married to one particular way of doing it. Understand the concept, but you want to make sure that this bird right here is able to play football and get to the football based off of the formation and the disbursements of the routes there. I don't know if that answers your question or not, Al.
It does, because that corner is on an island at the moment. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes what we may do too, Al, if we got certain formations, say for example, that backside receiver, that W in this situation, that's Odell Beckham. And he's their number one receiver on third down. And they take him and they somehow, normally he's been in the slot, okay? But for whatever reason, we get into the game and all of a sudden they're putting him on the backside, trying to work him one-on-one with our left corner, who may be one of our weaker defenders if we're not matching. We may tell the robber player, hey, this week, if Odell Beckham is on the backside, you're not even robbing anymore. You're going to go and turn this into two-man, and we're going to tell this corner, you're going to dog it, and you're going to play like a man under. So now he's taken out of the game.
Right.
And we don't even worry about robbing over to the front side, because we want to make sure that we're using this guy and we're not putting, the whole defense at jeopardy because we're married to one particular way of doing it. So this is just a starting point, but you got your robber. Now, as a coach, how can we best utilize our robber this week, okay? If you got a team that runs the ball on third down, okay, that may give you, if you want to run this thing, maybe it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and these teams all of a sudden, and we would see this a lot, particularly because we're a big pressure team on third down, we would get a lot of sub runs. And they get us going upfield and so forth. They try to, blow our defense a little bit and hit us with a quick hitter, to where if we had this call, now this robber, he also has to know based off of the front. Now here, we just have our guys in 2-3s or 2-2s here, and they're just jetting. He has to know now if he gets run, he just can't just be completely out of there. If he gets run, he knows he's a field player, and he's got to be able to fill where needed on the run. So he has to be in tune with that as well. And if you got a Troy Polamalu, you got a Earl Thomas, those guys that understand football, Jamal Adams, those guys understand that, and they know that, hey, just because it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, if I get a sub run here, I got to know that I just can't go completely blind. I got to be ready to fill on the ball and fill where my gap is and so forth. So if you're getting that, you want to make sure you define it. A little bit tougher in this particular front right here, because we have either 2-2s with our tackles, 2-2s there. But a lot of times when people get in third down, they'll get in that jet front and they'll get in 2-3s. And so now both A gaps need to be taken care of between the backer and the free safety, depending on what side that back is on.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Mullins, I think you had a question for Coach Perry.
Yeah, I did. Hi, Coach.
Hey, Jack.
This is it's more about flexibility on field, this question, and it's
Yes.
to do with preparation beforehand. So
Mm-hmm.
in that cover one robber,
Yes.
if we're looking in the backfield and seeing the H-back is a pass catching guy that
Yes.
is not going to run between the tackles,
Mhm.
would you allow the safeties and the backers to have a bit of on-field flexibility and allow the
Absolutely.
backer to drop maybe? And
Yeah, now you're thinking. And if he's a heavy, and again, I was a third down specialist in Green Bay, so I would always, who's their top receivers on third down? If it's 3rd and 2 to 5, is the backer factor, all those things. And so we want to take away what they do best. And so this is another situation, kind of like what we were talking about with Al a second ago. If that third down back is a matchup problem for our backer, we may bring the safety down. And we may tell him, hey, you know what, this week you're working with the backer. When we go robber, you're working with the backer. Or we may say, hey, you know what, we don't want the backer trying to play a robber in that 12 to 10-yard dig area and so forth. We may just tell you to double him, or, hey, you know what, tell the backer to get outside leverage and play it just like the nickel player would be everyone else that we want to involve in the robber coverage now. So now the backer can feel a little bit easier about playing heavy to the outside, knowing that, hey, you know what, my robber now, he's looking to help me too now. So I'm not on an island and I'm not having to defend, one of the best third down backs in the league solo. So now we just involve him in the name call. Great question.
Cool. Cheers, Coach.
And then sometimes we would do this. Sometimes we may put a DB in there, take the backer out. If it's third down, and if we're not worried about the run, we've done 7 DBs before in Pittsburgh. We call that 31, where we've had 7 DBs, out there on the field. Matchup issues. We're certainly not going to take one of our backers and expect him to cover a dynamic back out of the backfield as if, like he would if he was a DB. We're not going to, we don't want to put ourselves in a bad matchup situation. So we may sub and say, hey, listen, if this particular back comes in the game where he's not in protection, like some backs would be, some backs on third down, they're strictly in there for protection first. Some backs are scat releasing and they want to get out of there. We may put another DB in there just, for that purpose. Great question.
Coach, I've got a quick question for you. In right now where the Z is and you're playing outside man, and in
Yes.
the other slide as well where you've got balanced.
Yes.
If the Z starts to line up closer to the X or to the sideline, does the technique for the nickel change?
If he gets an oversplit, then he'll come a little more inside. He'll come inside on that there. He's just not going to play outside leverage, come hella high water. He has to use a little bit of awareness. And we always tell these guys to keep in mind your split rules. For example, we want everybody to be thinking outside leverage with the exception of the dime on the tight end, depending on who that bird is. But they always have to keep in mind split, alignments and so forth, whether it's a tight split or an over split to change their technique or their alignment, if you will.
Well, and I think you addressed this earlier. I'm not sure, but I just want some clarification. If we go back to the trip slide again, sorry to mess you around.
Oh, no, this is good. No, this is great.
Okay. So now between the dime and the nickel, can they exchange? Can they play games between them as long as they have outside and inside relationship?
As long as they're both, they could. We try not to discourage it in that situation because we want these guys. We want to use this guy.
Right.
So we tell the dime that one robber initially, we're saying you can handle the tight end. But now if you get in any type of stag alignment, just make sure you guys are at different levels. We would call that lock and level would be the term that we would say, lock and level. Because anytime you get proximity receivers, and you never want to be on the same level as a DB because now you're just inviting a pick situation. So if the backer or the dime has to go over the top on 3 going to the flat, he's got himself at a different level than that nickel player. So now he can get through that, and he can be a little more aggressive knowing that, hey, if he somehow runs an angle route or an arrow where he starts out and comes back in, I got a whole player sitting in there. So I can be a little bit more aggressive on the outside. I know I'm starting inside leverage, but anything going to the outside off of those stack alignments and so forth, I know that I can. And we may say this week, hey, we're going to cut all stacks. That would be the thing here for the guy here. So we may tell him, hey, lock and level, and we're going to cut any type of stack or bunch. So we tell the free safety, you got to make a quick name call. The first inside breaking route, boom, you're taking it, and now that other player that's been called off, now he becomes a whole player. So those are the coaching adjustments, and those are the things that you want to talk about throughout the week with your players in your meetings. And that's why the ability to watch film through the iPad, these guys can take it home and watch a game and say, hey, coach, I saw this particular route. How do you see this playing? And that's what you take care of during the week.
Okay. Coach, one last little bit on that. Now, if you have a mobile quarterback here,
yes.
Who's spying him? Is that going to be your robber, or who have you got watching him?
Yeah, if we that might be the coaching point also for if we're playing Seattle and we got a Russell Wilson, we may say, hey, listen, this week, you know what, you're gonna be robbing and so forth, but we want you to kind of stay a little close to Russell. Be aware of him scrambling based off of D&D and so forth. So that's another great point based off of a running quarterback, mobile quarterback and so forth, where we'd also, put a little onus on our front 4 guys as well, making sure that we tie up those rush lanes because Russell Wilson, he's notorious. You got a 4-man rush, there's going to be 2 gaps open, and a lot of times he can find it. And that's where having a guy like this here that's coming down robbing, if he's got some awareness And I think that's part of the coaching responsibility throughout the week, is to make those points and make sure that he's in tune. So to run that defensive call, you like to have your best football player, one of your better football players, play in that position, because he understands the situation, and then he can play to it accordingly. Great question.
Coach, following up on that, going back to your balanced picture.
Yes.
If we've got a quarterback that can run, and the offense now flips so that we've got quads to one side.
Yes.
And we've got our best receiver to the single side. Are you going to keep the same alignments and reads?
Yeah, if we want to take that backside receiver away, it's kind of like pick your poison. And so if that's the case, then we will put a little bit more onus on our front four guys now. And sometimes we may three-man rush them. And maybe we may drop a guy out and say, okay, we'll try to find maybe our best athletic defensive end. And we'll say, hey, you know what? We're going to three-man rush, and you're just going to slow rush Russell, looking for him to pull it down, and now you're responsible for him in that situation. So that way we kind of, can kill two birds with one stone, where we still take away their top receiver, but now we're guaranteeing a set of eyes on a guy like Russell Wilson or Lamar Jackson, some of these athletic quarterbacks out there that can hurt you throwing the ball as well as pulling it down and running, because a lot of these teams, they want to move the chains on third down and get them a new set of downs and so forth. So running, particularly the athletic quarterback there, that's just as big as them throwing, a 5-yard hitch route, crossing pattern, or whatever to keep the chains alive.
Yep. Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, gentlemen? This is good, guys. Keep going, man. I'm watching a movie right now. I'm enjoying it.
No dumb question, guys. No dumb question. And
Coach, there is something that, if you don't mind, can you talk through the defensive end when you talk about jet contain?
Yes.
Because lots of people mean different things by these things. So when you talk about jet contain, can you just walk that through with the backside, but with the weak side guy and the tight inside guy?
Yeah. Well, we're both telling these guys, hey, you guys are aggressive rushers. You guys are rushing the passer first. We put the guys in jets, because you'll see a lot of teams, they'll be in a 3-and-1 with their 2 tackles, a 3-and-1 technique. But when we go jet, we're thinking pass all the way, and these guys are thinking about getting to the quarterback, putting your best move on the guy. But somebody does have to contain. You just don't have, carte blanche where you can just come underneath and not keep the quarterback in the pocket. And we tell those guys, obviously, when you get to the level of quarterback, then you want to hunker down and be ready to retrace and so forth, where you're just not up and around, and now you're just allowing the quarterback to step up in the pocket. You hope that everybody's working together. The tackles are getting pushed that will not allow the quarterback to step up. But at the same time, we're telling those ends, hey, you guys get upfield. You're a jet rusher now. We're expecting you to get, pressure on the quarterback. But at the same time, you do have containment. So it's just more of an alert, if nothing more. It's just kind of a reminder that when they don't hear any other front call and they hear, just straight dime, they know they're all, jet rushing. And we pinning our ears back, and we're trying to get to the quarterback.
And on the side of the H-back, that defensive end there, would he ever be in a situation where he would peel off and go with the H-back?
No, he would not. Not unless we had some type of pressure. There's some man pressures that we have where we would put a peel on the back to where we're trying to get max pressure, and we're trying to bring the coverage. We may have some situation working where the end and the backer may have something going on the field, where if the back went right now, the end would take him, and now the backer will place him in the rush. But that's rare. We only do that if we got some type of pressure coming. But usually out of our 4-man rush, we let those ends go and get up the field and so forth. And if we're worried about the back flaring right now in that situation, the nickel sometimes may see it, depending on how quick the ball comes out. But that'd be one of the weaknesses of the defense right now, where that back would have to get through there and get over the top and make his play.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes.
Coach Perry, question for you.
Yes, sir, Dave.
With the sting pressure and then
Yes,
you know,
let me get back to that.
Yeah. Is there ever a certain situation like here you're playing your 2 deep with 4 under guys? Is there ever
Yes.
certain formations or certain things you'd rather play 3 deep, 3 under with it?
Well, really, remember that question you asked earlier about the 2-3 in proximity? And so when teams get into 3-by-1, and I don't know if you guys call it that, but they'll get into 3-by-1 formations and run all three receivers vertical and try to attack you down the middle of the field. Your 3-by-1 sets, that's why, and Rod can remember this, we used to call it tight sting 2 or 3, to where 2-by-2 is golden. It's ready-made. Gold is ready-made for 2-by-2 or your 2-back sets. But now you get into your 3-by-1 formations. Now teams can stress you a little bit because you got the middle of the field open. You got to have field safety on one side, and that number 3 going vertical, there's a window. And so that's the weakness of it. So there are a lot of teams that versus 3-by-1, they'll get into some form of cover 3. And that's how we started in Pittsburgh. But we didn't want our corners being on an island, particularly on the backside, and having, leaving him in a one-on-one situation. So we say, you know what, let's keep 2 to that weak side. And depending on who that guy is back there doing your study and as you're game planning and so forth, if that receiver on the backside isn't much of a threat, then you may say, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and play cover 3 and protect ourselves in the middle of the field versus the 3-by-1 formation. Great question. Because what will happen, like you said, Dan, if you look at box number 4, they'll flex that tight end, and that could be Kittles. That could be one of those stud tight ends, and they just run it right down the middle of the field. They'll run we call it all go special. And that's where it's a form of full verts, but instead of doing it off from a 2-by-2 formation, they're doing it off of a 3-by-1. And there are some teams that even if 2 and 3 are in proximity, they will still give you all 3 verticals because now they're trying to hide it and camouflage it, and they're not going to do it with spacing. Now they'll do it in proximity, and some teams will run all go special out of a bunch formation. So there are a lot of different ways to get to it if teams are trying to scheme you and so forth. And again, we call it smoke. Sometimes you got to be able to play through the smoke because offenses are creating fog and smoke, and we have to be able to play through it as much black and white as you want it to be. You got to be able to play through the smoke sometimes. But that was one of the issues that after teams studied you, they're like, okay, how can we beat some of this goal pressure that Pittsburgh's playing and some of these other teams that are having so much success? That's what they do. That's what the offseason is for. That's why the first year that the San Francisco and Colin Kaepernick, they just took the league by storm because people hadn't seen it before. But then you give coordinators, some time to study it during the offseason. Now we come up with our tight dog combos, 11-on-11 football in a sense. And you have to go back to some of your option rules and so forth and make sure you got somebody designed for the dive, the whole deal. Ends got to slow play the quarterback and so forth and determine who you want to keep the ball.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, my right honorables in this chat room? No, I think you're all good, guys. Well, Coach Perry, it's fair to say that you have an insatiable desire to coach and teach, and that protrudes through the screen and to my brain, and it was. Man, I love listening to you guys. I really do. So it was very, very informative. Guys, if you don't have any other questions, then I think we are good to move on, gentlemen. No questions, comments, statements.
Come on, you guys ready for this quiz now? Dan, you ready for this quiz? Nobody asked me about empty. How you gonna play that goal versus empty? I'll let you guys figure that one out. But that was something that we had to talk about too. But there'll always be something, guys, because there are a lot of smart people in the National Football League, and you get complacent and you think you got all the answers. There's somebody out there that's going to stress you. And give my advice to you: try not to get married, to one particular scheme if your personnel doesn't fit it, and keep some flexibility, have some fun with it, and put names on it that make sense to you and your guys, and let them go play fast, and try to eliminate some of the thinking to where they can just react.
That sounds good.
All right. Well, I'm more than happy to watch you guys answer that quiz. So or take that quiz. So if you're ready, keep going, guys.
No, we'll save it for next time.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I had everybody's undivided attention.
I was waiting on you to talk about and get all that done. I was, it was all there.
Okay, I like it.
All right, Coach Perry, thank you very much for your time tonight. It's much appreciated. Thanks a lot for that. Coach Woodson, sir, would you like to? Oh, sorry.
I appreciate you guys. Hey, Darren, you can quit sharing if you wish.
Okay, yeah, go. Oh, okay. Let me see. I knew I was going to have one. I only had 2 tonight, Rod.
No, you guys. I mean, you guys are, you guys are awesome. I appreciate you and David, and Coach Turek. You guys putting us all, talking to us, putting a lot of good information out there. I mean, understand. I mean, football's football. Ball is ball. I think the one thing, if you take a note from Darren, do what put the system in what your guys can do. Whatever your guys can do, that's the system that you want to put in there. Be it a 3-4, 4-3, be it a 3-3, whatever it is. You put that system in for your guys, and let them go play ball. And what Darren said at the end is probably the most important part is that keep it stupid simple, or keep it simple enough that they can understand it. That's one thing that Dick LeBeau used to say all the time. He used to say, "Don't speak to be understood, speak so you can't be misunderstood." And that's the key to coaching to me, is that, and that's one thing I had to learn through my coaching, my career, which is only 4 years. So, talking to the guys where they understood everything, where they didn't look like deer in headlights, where you always kept them interactive inside the meeting room. I think it's important to ask them questions. Another important thing that Darren said is to make them take ownership of the defense and what your guys are doing, because hey, there's some certain routes going to be in defenses that you're going to be like, that's freaking tough. With the rules that we have set right now, that's a really tough pickup.
Yeah.
How do you guys see it? And then they might have a better option.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
And then Coach LeBeau would say, we got to let Rod earn his money on that one there. This is why we pay Rod all that big money. Rod made all the money back then.
A quick story, Darren. So Dick used to say that all the time, right? So I leave Pittsburgh. Years later, I get to Oakland, and Charles Woodson. So Charles was in his like 3rd year at that time, right?
Yeah.
And I left because we had a rookie DB, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rookie DB. So I left him in the middle of the field to help the rookie DB because he was in a bad matchup.
Yeah.
We were playing Minnesota.
Yeah.
And Randy Moss was playing. Yeah. I'm like, hey, I ain't leaving him alone. But then he got beat on the scene.
Okay.
And he came over and said, where were you? I said, man, you make too much money for me to help you, bro. And I walked right back to the huddle. That's the same thing I used to say. I gave it to him too.
Wow. Hey, Rock, can I say one other thing to the coaches? And I don't know if they can get access to this, but if you guys can get some access to some college football film, watch Clemson. Watch Clemson and Brett Venables, their defensive coordinator. He's got the goal thing figured out. And that's all he's running a ton of goal coverage. And it was a first or second play in a national championship game either last year or the year before last when they were playing Alabama. Tua, I think, threw one right to the corner. And all he does, we talked earlier about sending whatever 5 guys you want to send. That's all he's doing. And there's nothing to take away from him. But he's mastered the goal concept, and he sends all different types of birds, and it's the same concept, 4 under, 2 deep zone. And he is killing the college quarterbacks with it. So if you guys ever get a chance, just watch it, and you'll see a lot of different variations of 5-man pressures. And it's just like, man, where's this guy coming from? And it's mostly all form of goal coverage. I just want to say that just, because I think it's kind of interesting. And again, where football hasn't changed, but,
Well, I appreciate everybody coming on. Coach, I appreciate you setting it all up, Coach Turek. Maurice, I appreciate you being the mediator over here for us and getting us through everything. So I appreciate all you guys.
Thank you, Coach. Coach, before we sign off, you know, I like to pick little nuggets that have hit me. But I'd rather finish off tonight with a question to Darren Perry, Coach Darren Perry. Coach, how come you're coaching now?
Well, that might be.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Don't take that the wrong way. I'm not saying how come you're coaching, but what's got you? Because there's a certain energy that comes over about you, and I understand your friendship with Coach Woodson and how you sort of banter, but you've become very interesting over the last couple of sessions we've done. So how come you know what I'm saying?
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Well, there's something about you. I'm going to start Googling and see. I'm going to dig up something on you somewhere.
Hey, blame Wood. No, but you know, I'll say this too, Rick. I said, just hearing David, you know, talk about Rod and some of the things that he believes in. Now I know why Rod was the player that he was. And I tried to share that with some of my players in terms of their off-season training. When David talked about the track, it was 2011 or 12 in Green Bay, and we had a ton of guys with hamstring injuries, and they weren't doing – and I think that part of it's because they weren't doing any of the long running. And I used to tell my safeties, Morgan Burnett, Ha Clinton-Dix, and Charles, get on that track as much as you can during the off-season, and that's going to prepare you. And then – once you'll get in football shape, and we know you don't run 40 yards, you know, very often in football, but this track is going to keep you alive, and it's going to allow you to play a long, long time. So hearing you say that, David, that explains a big part. When I was in Pittsburgh, Rod and those guys, they would go up to Duquesne University here in Cornell, and them suckers, man, would run 400s, 200s, and we look at them like, man. And they come out and they can run all day. They can run all day. And that was really neat to hear you say that. And that explained a lot of the why. Because what Dick LeBeau used to say, too, is just be patient. Why will answer itself in time. You may not get the answer right away, but just be patient, and why will answer itself. And I got the why tonight hearing you say that about going to the track and doing those 200s and all that stuff. So that's awesome.
It just makes sense. You know, you're on the field running all day. You might as well prepare for it. It's simple.
Yeah.
Well,
I appreciate you guys.
Coach, you still didn't answer the question.
Why are you coaching?
That was my political. That was called deflecting.
I can't let you off the hook. There's so much energy in the way you express yourself. I have a real selfish ulterior motive in all of this, because I believe football should be about energy. Yes. And I think one of the things over here this game could learn is about energy and having fun with that, and you exude it. Yeah, you know, I'm not, you know, so now, would you please answer the question?
well, I wish I could. Sometimes I scratch my head on that right now. But right now, I'm on a sabbatical. I still have the itch to coach. And once my daughter finishes her last year in high school, which everything has kind of been in shambles now with this whole COVID deal. But she's got one more year in high school, and she's a tennis player. And I'm doing some building. If you had told me, Rick, that I'd be coaching at 50 years old when I first got involved, I'd say no. And because, you know, I thought of myself as more than just football. But then when I got into coaching, the passion, you know, is there. And I even told Rod, when I was coaching in Green Bay, even in Pittsburgh, I don't think Rod was ready to coach at that time. But I kept telling him, I said, Rod, if I get a coordinator job or head coaching job, you'll be one of my first hires. And it just didn't work out. And so much of it is timing, right place at the right time, and so forth. And I had some opportunities, and I thought that I was going to have an opportunity to be a head coach in the National Football League. And I still think that still may happen. It's just now that I'm going to kind of, when I get back in, I'll probably have to work my way back up and so forth. And because I had aspirations of going that far and so forth. And some of it is being in the right place at the right time and timing and so forth. And I had a lot of breaks and a lot of blessings. And, so I have nothing to be frustrated or bitter about. Sometimes things just don't, work out, but the itch is still there. And so I do still plan on coaching once again. But I got some building I got going on right now, and I try to display that same energy and passion in that field like I do coaching.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
All the coaches and the players on tonight, thank you for your time. It's really important for us when we put this together that we try to hit as many of you as possible with as much information as possible. And I feel truly lucky that I've managed to get into a situation where, I'm talking to the likes of Coach Woodson, Coach Washington, Coach Perry, Coach Collins. Maybe the Moscow Mule hit him this weekend. I'm not sure, but
it must have been a miscommunication on my part. But it's his wife's birthday today.
That's another thing I like about you. You got his back.
That was my fault. That's my fault.
Hey, Coach, I like my story better. All right, I'm going to stick with my one. But to be able to just share football using technology and everything that goes on, we're really lucky. And I just want to thank all you gentlemen, including the people who came on to listen and the contributors and everybody. This is just such a great, great experience. And we'll carry on spreading the word and sharing the knowledge and flying the flag for hope through football. So bless you all. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Really, really do appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, definitely.
Thanks a lot for all of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take
Stay
care.
safe, everybody.
All
Stay
right,
safe.
you guys be well. Enjoy
All right,
your weekend.
guys. See you soon.
Yeah, see you.